Chapter 868. The feeling of passing through the space portal was far less mysterious than passing through the abyss border. It was just a flash of light before his eyes and a chill on his face. Whoosh! Yang Dingtian passed through the space portal. Suddenly, his vision darkened, and he felt the energy in his body flowing away quickly. After jumping through the space portal, Yang Dingtian left the confinement space of New Naga and returned to the third dark realm. Moreover, it was nighttime, and there was thick devouring slurry everywhere like mercury. At the same time, the moment Yang Dingtian passed through, the space portal in New Naga turned into ashes and disappeared completely. Recalling what the Demon King Wentian said, Yang Dingtian immediately released the void-splitting fire. Sure enough, the feeling of energy flowing away immediately stopped. Moreover, the devouring slurry within a few meters of the void-splitting fire was turned into ashes. Yang Dingtian's surroundings had instantly turned into a clean space. This void-rending flame was indeed powerful. When he looked back, he could not see the existence of the New Naga space at all. It was correct to not see it because it was an isolated space, so in the real world, it was infinitely small. However, Yang Dingtian knew that it was actually beside him. Of course, if Yang Dingtian opened another space portal, he would not be able to go to New Naga, because Yang Dingtian did not know where its singularity was. The space portal could only be overlapped with it for Yang Dingtian to jump in. Otherwise, Yang Dingtian's space portal was completely infinite, and it would be very difficult to jump in accurately. Therefore, if Yang Dingtian wanted to enter New Naga, there was only one way, and that was to fall into outer space again and find the entrance to the black hole vortex in New Naga. Once he entered, he would immediately be swallowed into the confinement space of New Naga. He took one last look at the invisible singularity of New Naga in this space, and then turned to leave. He had no interest in moving forward in the thick liquid. Thus, he used the mystic flame to spurt out and continuously flew upwards. After flying for 2,000 miles, they finally rushed out of the devouring slurry and arrived in the vacuum. He raised his head and saw the tranquil night sky again. Yang Dingtian identified the direction and then used the mystic flame to fly in the direction of the second dark domain. In a vacuum, the speed of Yang Dingtian's mysterious fire was already very shocking. It was several times faster than the speed of sound and could travel several thousand miles per hour. About 10 hours later, Yang Dingtian's mystic flame spurted out and flew for tens of thousands of miles. The abyss leading to the second dark domain was already in sight. At this moment, Yang Dingtian's profound qi had yet to be exhausted. Breaking through to the half-step sage realm was indeed different. Previously, Yang Dingtian's Xian flame could only fly for more than 5,000 kilometers before his Xian qi would be exhausted. But now it was more than 2 to 3 times. However, there was still some Xian qi left. Looking at the border of the abyss, Yang Dingtian suddenly felt a very familiar feeling. He released the void-splitting fire and quickly devoured and refined the energy of the border of the abyss. The void-splitting fire began to split and split into countless black and white flames that filled the entire border of the abyss. Then, it began to fuse into a transparent void-splitting fire. The entire border of the abyss turned into a transparent crystal. Yang Dingtian suddenly leaped in and once again enjoyed the space-time traversing and the bizarre feeling. A moment later, he suddenly passed through the border of the abyss and arrived at the third dark domain. The familiar third dark domain was completely scorching hot. The light from the 2 suns made it impossible to see anything. Yang Dingtian quickly put on his sunglasses and then used his near-emperor-grade soul sword to start digging a deep cave. After digging a few hundred meters, Yang Dingtian recovered his Xian qi in the cave and began to absorb Xian qi. Soon, he completely recovered his combat Xian qi. Yang Dingtian was not in a hurry to return to the surface to find Yao Li and the rest. Instead, he closed his eyes to rest. That was because Yang Dingtian felt that Yao Li's team would not come out to hunt during the day. After waiting for a few hours, it should be dawn. Because the surrounding temperature was rapidly dropping, Yang Dingtian left the cave and returned to the surface. Then, he continued to head south and released the million-spirit demonic fire's infinite wraiths to search for any energy fluctuations. Because whether it was elemental creatures or fox demon experts, as long as there was any movement, the countless wraiths would be affected. Just like that, Yang Dingtian searched an area of more than 100 miles each time. Just like that, he searched the area one by one. An entire night passed, but the countless wraiths did not move at all. Yang Dingtian was instantly flabbergasted. For the entire night, Yang Dingtian had searched the entire area within a radius of over 1,000 miles, but there wasn't any movement. This also meant that he didn't discover any demon fox race experts, nor did he discover any elemental creatures. When it was almost daytime, Yang Dingtian sat down cross-legged to recover his Xian Qi. Then, under the baking of 2 days, when the entire world was red and melting, Yang Dingtian searched again. If there was no harvest during the day, perhaps there would be at night. In the end, an entire day passed, and there was still no harvest. He did not find any elemental creatures, nor did he find any fox demon experts. Yang Dingtian was flabbergasted. How long had it been since he left the second dark realm? It had been almost 8 months. Could it be that one day in the new Naga's confinement space was equivalent to a month or a year outside? Otherwise, why was there not a single ghost in the second dark realm? Soon enough, Yang Dingtian threw away this ridiculous thought. It was impossible. This wasn't heaven and earth, and it wasn't interstellar transmigration or anything like that. Then why was there not a single ghost in sight? It should be the result of the Great Fission. That disaster had caused 90% of the elemental creatures in the second dark realm to be annihilated. The remaining 10% of elemental creatures had probably been hiding underground for a long time, unwilling to come out. If that was the case, the fox demon experts had no hope of hunting and could not leave. Then there was only one result. The first possibility was internal strife. The second possibility was that they were all hiding underground, entering deep sleep and meditation, waiting for the door of darkness to open in the skull hall. However, that would take more than 190 years. If that was the case, it was normal that there was not a single ghost. In that case, Yaoli was very likely waiting in the original cave for Yang Dingtian to return. It was either the 4-room, 2-hall cave that the Moro young master Yaolong had snatched, or the 2-room cave later. Those 2 caves should be in the center of the second dark realm. Thus, Yang Dingtian took advantage of the darkness and immediately ran toward the center of the second dark realm at full speed. Yang Dingtian ran very quickly, covering nearly 1,000 kilometers in an hour. Even so, it took him 2 days and 2 nights to reach the center of the second dark realm. After more than 40 hours, Yang Dingtian reached the center of the second dark realm, near the 4-room, 2-hall cave that he had dug. Of course, because of the Great Fission, the underground cave had been completely destroyed, but it was more or less in the same direction. When he was more than 100 kilometers away, Yang Dingtian did not dare to let his guard down. He released countless wraiths to investigate. As expected, he soon discovered an unprecedentedly strong energy fluctuation. Thus, Yang Dingtian cautiously made his way toward the source of the energy fluctuation. When Yang Dingtian arrived at that place, he was immediately stunned. There was actually a huge castle standing here. When did this happen? This was the second dark realm. The ground would be melted by the heat of day and night. A castle built on the ground would be melted by the heat of day and night, and would collapse. However, Yang Dingtian soon discovered that the castle was not made of stone, but a metal that glowed with blue light. It had a very high melting point, and even 2 days would not be enough to melt it. Not only was there a castle, but there were also guards on the castle. They were all elites of the Fox clan, and they were on full alert. Yang Dingtian was instantly flabbergasted. What exactly did this mean? Could it be that because they could not hunt elemental creatures, someone decided to establish a regime here? Yang Dingtian immediately entered the castle to see if he could find Yao Li, Yao Zi, and the others. He searched every corner of the castle, but did not find Yao Li, Yao Zi, Bo Lu, Awen or Awu. There were more than 100 Fox clan members in the castle. Soon Yang Dingtian knew whose castle this was. It was the castle of the young master of the Moro clan Yaolong. This was because Yang Dingtian saw him on the throne of the castle. There was oxygen in the castle because there were pills everywhere. And the air was steaming. Have the people we sent out not found Yao Li yet? Yao Leng asked. Not yet, young master. A half-saint beside him bowed and said. However, we have a general direction. However, Yao Ming has also sent out many elites to find Yao Li and the others. Yao Leng said. We must not let Yao Ming catch Yao Li and the others, or the consequences will be unimaginable. The half-saint said. Then, what should we do if the two sides meet and fight for Yao Li? Yao Leng said. Even if we have to fight, we must take Yao Li back. Yes, the half-saint said. I will go immediately. Then, the half-saint left, and only Yao Leng was left in the castle hall. He sat on the cold iron chair, looked up at the roof, and muttered to himself. Sir Yang Dingtian, where are you? I really miss you. How good would it be if you were here? Yang Dingtian couldn't help but be surprised. That was not to the extent of missing him. Although he and Yao Leng had become friends, and both sides appreciated each other, it was not to the extent of missing him. This time, Yang Dingtian was preparing something in the second dark realm. He did not interfere in any battles, and directly found Yao Li and the others, then immediately left and returned to the human countries. Chapter 869. Just like this, Yang Dingtian prepared to leave the castle immediately to look for Yao Li and Yao Zi's sisters. Right at this moment, another Fox clan expert came in and said, Young master, the prospective wife is in great danger. She vomited black blood again. I'm afraid she won't live for long. Yao Leng trembled suddenly, his face twitching as he said in a cold voice. Yao Ming, I must take revenge for this. Yang Dingtian was stunned when he heard this. When did Yao Leng have a prospective wife? Wasn't he always infatuated with Jia? Then, Yao Leng immediately got up and went to see his so-called prospective wife. His prospective wife was underground. Yang Dingtian turned invisible and followed him into the underground cave. The top of this castle was no longer big, but the bottom was even bigger with many caves. Coming into a cave, Yang Dingtian immediately smelled a pungent medicinal smell. In the entire castle, this room was considered the best condition. At least there was a lot of silk and a thin blanket. Very soon, Yang Dingtian saw Yao Leng's so-called prospective wife. He recognized this woman at a glance. She was from the Shadow Spear clan, and could be considered Jiya's cousin. Although she wasn't as beautiful as Jiya, there were some similarities. What was her name again? It seemed to be Yao Mi. Yao Leng should love the house and its crow. Because he was infatuated with Jiya, he got together with this Yao Mi. Furthermore, this Yao Mi was following the Golden clan's young master Yao Ming at that time. However, because Yao Ming was unfair, Yao Leng revealed the demeanor of a leader at the crucial moment. Therefore, Yao Mi chose to leave Yao Ming's team and joined Yao Leng's side. It was also because of these various reasons that Yao Leng got together with her and became a prospective husband and wife. However, this Yao Mi was poisoned by some unknown poison. Her entire skin was purple, and the blood flowing out of the corner of her mouth was also black. Her breathing was weak. Clearly, she didn't have long to live. Looking at her face that was somewhat similar to Jiya's, Yang Dingtian's heart softened and wanted to appear to save her. He should be able to save her. This was clearly a material poison, and not a mental poison. Yang Dingtian's blood could cure hundreds of poisons. However, Yang Dingtian held himself back. Right now the most important thing was to find Yao Li and the others. Then, he would immediately leave this troublesome place. Once he showed himself, he might bring trouble. As for bringing Yao Leng back to the human nations, or even letting Yao Leng help in the Great War of Extinction, Yang Dingtian had no such thoughts. Yao Leng was involved in too many fox demon experts. He wasn't pure at all. It was impossible to drag him along to the human countries. It was impossible to get them to help in the battle. Instead, it would only bring about disaster. Yao Li, Yao Zi, and the others were an absolutely pure group. Moreover, they had been with Yang Dingtian for a year or two. They trusted him with their lives, and had absolute trust in him. That was why Yang Dingtian dared to pull them into the Council of Light. Therefore, Yang Dingtian could only harden his heart and turn around to leave. Yang Dingtian turned invisible and left the castle to search for Yao Li and the others. Just as he left the castle not far away, Yang Dingtian suddenly felt an incomparably powerful energy fluctuation. Immediately after, he saw a figure flying over quickly. Yang Dingtian immediately stopped. This figure whizzed over, and the direction just happened to be that castle. Not only that, but there was also a familiar elemental creature lying on his body. A demon spirit, a rank 18 demon spirit. This demon spirit directly lay on his shoulder and chattered endlessly, but did not kill him. His speed was very fast. But Yang Dingtian still vaguely remembered that this was the trusted aide of the Goldenah clan's young lord, Yao Ming. He was also an expert above half-sage. Really strange, why did the demon spirit not kill him? Instead, he lay on his shoulder as if he had become his pet. Very soon, Yang Dingtian thought of the reason. He had evil spirit energy on him. This was the only reason. However, Yang Dingtian had already given the fourth great evil spirit energy to Yao Li. Why would it fall into Yao Ming's hands? Why would Yao Ming's half-sage trusted aide bring a rank 18 demon spirit to Yao Lung's castle? Yang Dingtian quickly figured it out. It was for a massacre. That's right. He used this rank 18 demon spirit to lure Yao Lung's castle to start a massacre and wipe out all of Yao Lung's people. How vicious was that? How vicious was this demonic cry? Moreover, after the Great Fission, how did Yao Ming find this rank 18 demon spirit? Now Yang Dingtian was most concerned about Yao Li. What happened to Yao Zi? A rank 4 demon spirit actually fell into Yao Ming's hands. What did this mean? No matter how much of a beast Yao Ming was, he shouldn't be so vicious to his own sister, right? Yang Dingtian was suddenly a little anxious. Yao Li, Bo Lu, and the others were not only his biggest helpers in the future. The most important thing was that after spending 1 or 2 years together, Yang Dingtian completely regarded them as his best friends. However, the most dangerous thing now should be Yao Lung's castle. This rank 18 demon spirit was enough to wipe out all of the Fox clan experts in the castle. Then, should Yang Dingtian go back and save them? Facing Jiya's cousin, Yang Dingtian could harden his heart and not save her. However, facing 100 or 200 Fox clan experts, Yang Dingtian really couldn't harden his heart. One had to know that most of them had fought side by side with Yang Dingtian before. They even offered their energy essence for Yang Dingtian to break through. Taking a deep breath, Yang Dingtian still couldn't leave them in the lurch. Therefore, he immediately went back at full speed. By the time Yang Dingtian returned to Yao Lung Castle, the massacre of the rank 18 demon spirit had already begun. As for Yao Ming's half-saint confidant, after luring the demon spirit to Yao Lung Castle, he had already disappeared. Yang Dingtian didn't know how he got rid of this rank 18 demon spirit and lured its attention to the Fox clan experts in Yao Lung Castle. In short, the massacre of Yao Lung's subordinates by the rank 18 demon spirit had already begun. At this moment, Yao Lung had already organized all the experts to kill this rank 18 demon spirit together. However, this demon spirit's speed was simply too fast. They couldn't hit it at all. Therefore, the entire scene was a one-sided massacre. Countless demonic fox experts were torn to shreds before being devoured alive. The entire special metal castle seemed to have turned into hell. The Goldenah clan's young lord, Yao Ming, was truly vicious. He actually wanted to wipe out Yao Lung's group once and for all. They were all born from the same father. There was a world of difference between him and Yao Li and Yao Zi. If Yang Dingtian didn't make a move to save them, all the demon fox race experts in this castle would be wiped out. This was because Yao Lung's 100 over experts didn't even have the strength to fight back. Of course, Yang Dingtian didn't have any more evil spirit energy on him. Therefore, he couldn't attract the demon spirit's attention. However, he still had one more trump card. That was the rank 19 demon spirit pet. It was the rank 19 demon spirit whose limbs were cut off and whose eyes were blindfolded. At that time, it was lying on Yang Dingtian's shoulder and refused to leave. Later on, Yang Dingtian wanted to go to the third dark realm. He couldn't bring it across the border of the abyss. Therefore, Yang Dingtian directly used the energy cloak to wrap it up and put it into his spatial ring. Fortunately, when the Naga Shuang devoured the Hell Magic Crystal, she didn't devour this rank 19 demon spirit as well. After Yang Dingtian appeared, Yao Lung's group was stunned. Then they were overjoyed. Before they could greet him, Yang Dingtian directly threw out this rank 19 demon spirit that didn't have any limbs or claws, and didn't have any lethality. As expected, the same kind was the greatest enemy. That rank 18 demon spirit that was slaughtering was shocked. Then, it immediately flashed over, and stared at this rank 19 demon spirit. Then, the two demon spirits suddenly became the greatest enemies, and began to kill each other crazily. Of course, Yang Dingtian's rank 19 demon spirit pet didn't have any attack power. It could only roar crazily, as if its limbs were still there. As for that rank 18 demon spirit, it used its sharp claws to attack the rank 19 demon spirit. However, Yang Dingtian's pet was now a body of energy. No matter how sharp its claws were, they couldn't cause any damage. Therefore, the two incomparably powerful demon spirits began to attack each other crazily. However, they couldn't cause any damage at all. This scene reminded Yang Dingtian of a very funny emoticon when he was chatting on QQ back on Earth. Two Pikachu were crazily slapping each other in the face. Yang Dingtian stepped forward and pulled out his near-emperor-grade soul sword. He injected the million-spirit demon fire and void-rending fire into it. Then he wildly attacked the rank 18 demon spirit's limbs. If it was in the past, this would definitely take a lot of effort, and who knows how long it would take. But now, in just a little more than a quarter of an hour, Yang Dingtian cut off the limbs of this rank 18 demon spirit. Then, he quickly wrapped its eyes with an energy cloth. Suddenly, this rank 18 demon spirit could only be reduced to a pet without any attack power. The remaining rank 19 demon spirit was already chattering nonstop, as if its claws were still attacking crazily. Yang Dingtian used his energy cloak to wrap it up. Mr. Yang Dingtian. Then he heard Yao Lung's excited cry. He rushed over and hugged Yang Dingtian tightly. Then he patted Yang Dingtian's back hard and said, Finally see you again. We missed you very much. I didn't expect you to save us again. You saved us again. Yang Dingtian smiled slightly. Yao Lung let go of Yang Dingtian, then led all his subordinates and bowed to Yang Dingtian in an orderly manner. Thank you, Mr. Yang Dingtian, for saving our lives. Yang Dingtian smiled and said, Mr. Yao Lung, gentlemen, I trust you have been well since we last met. Then, Yang Dingtian handed the rank 18 demon spirit in his hand to Yao Lung and said, Yao Ming may use the same vicious trick in the future. This rank 18 shadow demon is for you. It should be able to resist the slaughter of all the demon spirits. Yao Lung was slightly stunned and said, Mr. Yang Dingtian, this is equivalent to a rank 18 energy essence. Yang Dingtian said, In comparison, the lives of more than 100 demon foxes are much more valuable. Yao Lung received it and bowed deeply, saying, The demon foxes thank Mr. Yang Dingtian for his great kindness. Yang Dingtian said, Then, I will take my leave. I still have to look for Yao Li and Yao Zi. Chapter 870. Sir, please wait. Yao Lung said, You'll be weak if you go alone. Why don't you stay here first? We'll come up with a plan to find or rescue Yao Li and her sister. It might be better to be careful. Yang Dingtian could conceal himself, so there was no need for too many people. However, he thought of Jia's cousin Yao Mi. Since she had already shown up, why not save her? Thus, Yang Dingtian nodded and stayed for the time being. Yang Dingtian instantly became a distinguished guest in the castle. The castle's reserves were very, very few. Almost everyone survived by consuming pills. There was also some fresh food, but it was brought from Little Western Paradise a few years ago. It was all stored in special crystal boxes to keep it fresh. It was almost never used. Even Yao Lung couldn't bear to eat it. However, at the banquet for Yang Dingtian, in front of him, there was a plate of fruits, a plate of meat, and a full bottle of wine. In front of others, there was at most a small cup of wine. Even in front of Yao Lung, there was only a small plate of snacks. The banquet for him to entertain Yang Dingtian was already very sumptuous. How could young Dingtian be willing to eat it? He said to put it back, but Yao Lung said that if he took it out and put it back, it would spoil. Thus, Yang Dingtian wanted to share it with everyone, but no one was willing. Thus, Yang Dingtian didn't argue and ate the plate of barbecued meat in front of him. During the banquet, Yang Dingtian deliberately asked, Sir Yao Lung, in the battle between you and Yao Ming of the Golden Horn clan, which side did the Shadow Spear clan stand on? Yao Lung said, Yao Nu's son Yao Yi stands on Yao Ming's side. His niece Yao Mi stands on my side. Moreover, she has already become my woman. Yang Dingtian immediately said, Then congratulations. He raised his wine cup to celebrate, then said with a smile, Why don't I see Miss Yao Mi today? Could it be that Sir Yao Lung is hiding a mistress? Yao Lung said bitterly, Sir Yang Dingtian, you must be joking. Miss Yao Mi, I'm afraid she doesn't have long to live. Yang Dingtian asked in shock. Why is that? Yao Lung said angrily, Being poisoned is the work of that beast Yao Ming. He coveted Jia but failed, so he set his sights on Yao Mi. In the end, Miss Yao Mi favored me, so he ruthlessly dealt with me. Yang Dingtian said angrily, This bastard is actually so vicious. Then Yang Dingtian said, I also have some insights into the use of poison. Why don't you take me to see if there's still a chance to salvage the situation? Yao Lung was pleasantly surprised. Really? Yang Dingtian nodded. Yao Lung immediately stood up from his seat in excitement, cupped his hands and said, If Your Excellency Yang Dingtian is able to save Miss Yao Mi, then Yao Lung will be indescribably grateful, indescribably grateful. Then, he led the way in front, bringing Yang Dingtian into the secret underground room, to the room where Yao Mi was died in a mere 2 to 4 hours. Yao Mi's complexion already became even worse. She was practically unconscious already. Yao Lung was originally filled with hope, but seeing her appearance of being on the verge of death, he did not dare to have any hope and immediately said, For Sir to come and take a look. I'm already incomparably grateful. No matter what the result is, I'll remember Sir's kindness. Yang Dingtian nodded and pretended to take Yao Mi's pulse. Really weak, practically unable to feel the existence of a pulse. Then he flipped Yao Mi's eyes. It was already infiltrated very severely by the poison, and her pupils were about to scatter. She was really going to die very soon. Furthermore, her entire body was thoroughly ice cold, not much better than ice. Her entire body already turned from black to blue, and seeing Yang Dingtian's actions, Yao Lung immediately did not even dare to breathe loudly. Looking at Yang Dingtian's actions, he immediately felt that it was profound and mysterious. After acting, Yang Dingtian nodded and said, I can try, but what the result will be, I dare not guarantee. Yao Lung said, Please, no matter what the result is, I'll be incomparably grateful. Yang Dingtian did not want others to see that his blood could be detoxified. Hence he said, However, Your Excellency Yao Lung, please leave. Although Yao Lung was very grateful to him, and was very enthusiastic, one must not be without vigilance. Yao Lung was stunned, then nodded and said, All right, then I'll be outside. If Sir needs anything, just call out directly. Okay, Yang Dingtian said. Then, Yao Lung retreated and closed the stone door. Inside the entire stone room, only Yang Dingtian and Yao Mi, 2 people were left. Yang Dingtian took out a needle and inserted it into his arm's blood vessel, drawing out a bit of fresh blood. Of course, whether Yang Dingtian's blood was really useful or not, he did not know. He used his blood to save Zhao Mu and also save Dongfang Bingling. But what they were inflicted with was ice-cold poison. It was true that Yang Dingtian's entire body had been tempered by the deep-sea mystic poison, but if it could not be detoxified, it was also possible that this needle would poison Yao Mi to death. However, since Yao Mi was already like this, he might as well treat it as a living horse. Yang Dingtian found the location of her heart and directly inserted this needle, then injected the blood inside into her heart. In just a moment, Yao Mi's body suddenly trembled violently trembling. Then a painful sound came from her throat. Immediately after, a lot of black blood and blue blood spurted out regardless. This intense reaction made Yang Dingtian jump in fright. And Yao Lung, who was outside, also immediately rushed in. PFFF. Yao Mi suddenly sat up abruptly, then suddenly spat out a piece of solidified blue blood clot, then suddenly lay down on the bed again. Then, her breathing actually gradually became stronger, and the color of her skin actually gradually recovered its snow-white color. She was actually saved. Yao Lung was completely and utterly shocked, completely in awe. Immediately, she bowed deeply to Yang Dingtian and said, "Mr. is really a god. All right, then I should leave." Yang Dingtian said, "Mr. Yao Lung, goodbye." Yao Lung immediately stopped Yang Dingtian. "Mister, you are our great benefactor. How can you just leave like this? No, we must repay you well and serve you well. I know you are very worried about Yao Li and Yao Zi sisters. I will send all the experts out to search. How about that?" "There is no need for that. I can go by myself," Yang Dingtian replied. "No, definitely not." Yao Lung immediately grabbed Yang Dingtian's arm and said, "Mister, if you just leave like this, Yao Lung will definitely feel uneasy." Yang Dingtian smiled and said seriously, "It is better to forget each other in the pugilistic world than to help each other in times of need." There was still a smile on Yao Lung's face, but her gaze became serious, and she said, "Actually, I have something to ask of you." Yang Dingtian's gaze trembled slightly, and he said, "Mr. Yao Lung, please speak." Yao Lung said, "As a human, you definitely did not enter the dark realm through the door of darkness in the Great Hall of Skulls. So there is only one way, which is to pass through the abyss border. May I be so bold as to ask how you came here?" Yang Dingtian's heart suddenly jumped, and he said with a smile, "What if I say it is not convenient for me to answer?" Yao Lung took 3 steps back, and bowed deeply and said, "After the great fission, the entire dark realm has no harvest. Only the shadow demon is unparalleled on the surface. We are already on the verge of death. Mister, please tell me how to pass through the abyss border, for the sake of the hundreds of lives of the Fox clan, so that I can bring everyone back to Little Western Paradise. Mister's great kindness, the entire Little Western Paradise will never forget." Yang Dingtian fell into silence. Yao Lung had directly pointed out this point. Then could the void fire allow so many people to pass through the abyss border? Even if it could, should he really do it? In fact, if it was only to help these people return to Little Western Paradise, then it would not be a big problem. However, Yang Dingtian wanted Yao Li, Yao Zi, Bo Lu, and the others to stay in the human countries and help the Tiando League in the Great War of Extinction. They would help guard the door of the human countries. Moreover, once Yang Dingtian helped Yao Lung and the others return to Little Western Paradise, it was equivalent to letting Yongxi Wentian know that he had obtained the void fire, and that he had seen through him. At that time, Jia and her child might be in danger. After a long time, Yang Dingtian suddenly said, "Mr. Yao Lung, you sent people to look for Yao Li and Yao Zi not because you care about them, but because of me." Yang Dingtian now understood the meaning of Yao Lung's words when no one was around. He said how much he missed Yang Dingtian, and how much it would be if Yang Dingtian was here. Yang Dingtian found it strange at that time. They were not that close, so how could he miss him? So this was the reason. Yang Dingtian said seriously, "Mr. Yao Lung, what if it's not convenient for me to say?" Yao Lung said, "That's not important. Please stay, and let me repay your kindness." Yang Dingtian said, "What if I insist on leaving?" Yao Lung said, "That's not the way to treat a guest. As the host, even if I have to force you to stay, I have to treat Mr. Yang Dingtian well." Yao Lung's face was still full of smiles, but his eyes were no longer smiling. He grabbed Yang Dingtian's arm and did not let go. When he looked up, the thick door in front of him had already closed. Yang Dingtian could not flash away even if he wanted to. Yang Dingtian's heart suddenly turned cold. Although he had already thought of this outcome, he didn't save Yao Mi when he was about to die. But when this situation really happened, he still felt cold all over. Yao Lung performed very well on the day of the Great Fission. He treated Yang Dingtian as a savior, and provided Yang Dingtian with all his strength to break through. However, when everyone thought that the Great Fission was over, and Yao Ming proposed to expel Yang Dingtian. He did not try to stop him. Today, Yang Dingtian saved hundreds of fox demons again, and saved the life of his woman, Yao Mi. However, this did not stop Yao Lung from turning hostile for benefits. The fox demons were an advanced civilization, so this situation was very normal. However, Yang Dingtian still felt a chill down his spine. Yao Lung waved his hand, and 5 half-sages and above appeared. Then he said with a smile, "Mr. Yang Dingtian, how can you leave? You must be treated well, so I have no choice but to force you to stay." Then, the 5 15th, 16th, and 17th level experts immediately surrounded Yang Dingtian and locked onto Yang Dingtian's profound veins. "Mr. Yang Dingtian, please come to our most honorable room," Yao Lung said. Then, the 5 half-sages and above led Yang Dingtian into a stone room. There was a huge energy formation inside, forming an energy prison. It was very similar to the energy prison that imprisoned Yongxi Wentian. "Mister, please be at ease and stay here as a guest. We will save Yao Li and Yao Zi with all our strength." Yao Lung bowed and left. As for the 5 half-saints, they also retreated. "The 5 of you, serve Mr. Yang Dingtian well here," Yao Lung said loudly. "If he needs anything, you must satisfy it." "Yes," the 5 half-sages and above replied loudly. Then, they sat down and guarded the door. Yang Dingtian easily broke through the seal on his profound veins. Now, unless it was a demi-saint expert, no one would be able to lock onto Yang Dingtian's profound veins. Yao Lung only knew about Yang Dingtian's cultivation half a year ago. It was easy to break through the seal on his profound veins, but it was very difficult to break out of the energy prison. Yang Dingtian gave it a try. The moment he touched the energy wall, he was bounced back. The indestructible soul sword that was close to the emperor grade was also useless. Yang Dingtian tried to use the void-rending fire, but it was useless. Even the countless wraiths couldn't break out of the energy prison. He took a deep breath. This energy prison might be able to trap anyone, including Yongxi Wentian. But now it couldn't trap Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian released the darkness mystic flame and created a dark vortex. It turned into a black hole and started to isolate the space. Then, he used the energy of the mystic flame to bombard the isolated space with a specific frequency to create a spatial door. Whoosh! Yang Dingtian jumped into the spatial door and jumped out of the energy prison. Then Yang Dingtian shouted, "Man! What do you want, mister?" The half-sages outside asked. "I want to talk to Yao Lung." Yang Dingtian said, "Bring me there." A moment later, the thick stone door opened. The 5 half-sages entered, only to find that the energy prison was empty. Moreover, the entire stone room was empty. The 5 demon fox experts were completely stunned. What was going on? How did he disappear into thin air? Whoosh! Yang Dingtian turned invisible and immediately rushed out. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. He rushed out of the underground, rushed out of Yao Lung's castle, and disappeared into the second dark domain. After Yao Lung received the news, he was like a bolt from the blue. Impossible, impossible. This energy prison is so powerful that no one can break through it. Although Yang Dingtian is very mysterious, his cultivation hasn't even broken through to the half-sages. Yao Lung said loudly, "Go and find him. Send out all the experts. Find him even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground." Yes. Then, all the experts in Yao Lung's castle came out in full force. Yao Lung sat on the metal throne. His eyes flashed with a strange light and said, "I must leave this place. I must leave this place and return to Little Western Paradise. No matter what the cost." 15 minutes later, Yang Dingtian appeared in the main hall of the castle again. He was not far away from Yao Lung. Of course, he was invisible. That's right, he was back again. He didn't go far. After leaving the castle, he lurked not far away. When Yao Lung sent out all the experts, he came back secretly. This was a typical story of the farmer and the snake. Although Yang Dingtian was mentally prepared, he still felt incomparably angry when it really happened. After suffering such a loss, it was impossible for him not to take revenge. Yang Dingtian stared at Yao Lung's face. He came in front of him invisible and pulled out his near-emperor-grade soul sword. Then he suddenly flashed over. Poochie! Yaoling only felt a chill in his crotch. Then, he realized that the most important part of his man had disappeared. Suddenly, he let out an incomparably miserable scream. Yang Dingtian suddenly appeared. The near-emperor-grade soul sword in his hand shook lightly. Yaoleng's man's thing was instantly shattered. Yaoleng desperately covered his vital parts. He looked at Yang Dingtian in disbelief and said hoarsely, Yang Dingtian you. Yang Dingtian said slowly, if you didn't forcefully imprison me and just asked me to take you away, I might have agreed. But you actually dared to forcefully imprison me. You're really courting death. Yaoleng said with a fierce face, I've always been such a person. Don't you know? Could it be that because we appreciated each other and fought side by side, we became close friends? You're too naive. Yes. Yang Dingtian said with a smile. So I'm here to clean up the future trouble. Are you my opponent? Although you castrated me, you're still not my opponent. Yaoleng completely isolated himself from the pain. Then, he pulled out his sharp sword and said slowly, since we've torn our faces, it's good. Hand over the method to pass through the abyss border. Pa! Yang Dingtian suddenly struck down with the devil sky-splitting lightning. Suddenly Yaoleng trembled. His entire body was completely paralyzed. And he was completely unable to move. Pa. Yang Dingtian's devil sky-splitting lightning struck down crazily. Yaoleng's body was completely charred black. He trembled crazily and howled crazily. You broke through the 15th rank? Yaoleng pointed at Yang Dingtian in disbelief. His voice was completely hoarse. Yes, Yang Dingtian said. Although in terms of cultivation, you're a little higher than me. But I can easily crush those of the same level as me. You're no exception. Originally, the hatred between you and me was not to the point of killing you. But in order to avoid future trouble, I'd better kill you. Crackle 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 crackle. Yang Dingtian's devil sky-splitting lightning struck down with incomparable ferocity. Directly, Yaoleng's entire body was completely burned into a pile of charcoal. At this moment, a scream suddenly came from behind him. It was Yaomi, the Yaomi that he had just saved not long ago. Yang Dingtian tightened his grip on the sword in his hand, and he immediately wanted to kill her. But after thinking about it, he gave up. Anyway, she couldn't leave the Dark Realm for 200 years. Yang Dingtian nodded at Yaomi, and felt that an expert was approaching quickly. He directly turned invisible, and used the demon spirit mist cloak flash technique. He left the castle like lightning, and instantly disappeared without a trace. Chapter 871. Following that, Yang Dingtian searched for Yao Li and the others in the vast second dark realm. Of course, he was also looking for Yao Ming's lair. After a day and a night, Yang Dingtian searched for thousands of miles, but still could not find Yao Li, Yao Zi, and the others. The situation was indeed much more complicated than Yang Dingtian had expected. Because there was no harvest in the second dark realm, it had turned this place into a huge prison. The Fox clan's experts were unable to harvest anything here. Then, they knew that Yang Dingtian had a way to travel through the border of the abyss, so both sides tried their best to find Yang Dingtian. Then, Yao Li and the others became the best hostages. From that fourth great evil spirit, he could roughly guess that Yao Li and the others had fallen into the hands of her brother, Yao Ming. Sure enough, after 2 days and 2 nights, Yang Dingtian found Yao Ming's lair 7,000 miles to the west. Unlike Yao Leng, Yao Ming's lair did not have a castle. It was directly underground. What was exposed outside was only an entrance guarded by experts. Soon enough, Yang Dingtian knew that Yao Li and Yao Zi were in the lair of the Golden clan's Yao Ming. That was because Wen's mystic meridians were directly locked. And then he was hung high on a metal flagpole. It was very obvious that this was done to attract Yang Dingtian. Yao Ming clearly wanted to let Yang Dingtian know that Yao Li and Yao Zi were in his hands. This was not even a trap. He just wanted to find Yang Dingtian. Sure enough, there were a few words engraved on the thick flagpole. Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, welcome for a chat. It was directly written in the common language of the human countries. Yang Dingtian noticed that the entrance was not only guarded by experts, but it was also tightly shut. It was impossible to sneak in to save people. That would be walking right into a trap. Unless Yang Dingtian had a high-level devil spirit that he could let in for a massacre. Yang Dingtian could take advantage of the chaos to enter and save people. But Yang Dingtian quickly gave up on the idea. He wasn't a demon lord. Even if these people were fox demons, he couldn't just let the demon spirit go in and kill them. Furthermore, when Mo Ling started his massacre, no matter who it was, even Yao Li and Yao Zi were killed together. He couldn't sneak in to save people, and he couldn't let Mo Ling in to slaughter them either. Then the only way was to have a talk with Yao Ming. Of course, they would talk in the vast dark realm outside, and Yao Ming could only send one person. In that case, Yang Dingtian wouldn't be in any danger. Yao Ming was much older than Yao Qi, and had been a half-saint for a long time. However, Yang Dingtian wasn't afraid of him now. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian appeared. Very soon, the 4 half-saints guarding the entrance of the lair noticed. They were shocked, but they didn't chase after them. One of them quickly entered the lair to inform Yao Ming. When Awan, who was on the flagpole, saw Yang Dingtian, he suddenly became very excited and shouted, "Mr. Yang Dingtian, go go!" Of course, this was a vacuum, and his voice couldn't be transmitted. Yang Dingtian directly used his celestial qi energy to transmit his voice over. "Your young master wants to talk with me, so let's talk. Only he can come alone. As long as anyone follows him, I'll immediately disappear without a trace. You should know that it's harder than ascending to heaven to catch me on the ground." After one of the half-saints heard this, he immediately entered the lair, and reported Yang Dingtian's words to Yao Ming. After only a quarter of an hour, Yao Ming appeared on the ground. Sure enough, he was alone. When he saw Yang Dingtian, a smile appeared on his face. As he walked, he said, "Mr. Yang Dingtian, I trust you've been well since we last met. 8 months ago, I was really ignorant and offended you. I apologize to you here." Well said, Yang Dingtian said. Yao Ming said, "Mr. Yang Dingtian, are you coming from Yao Lung's side? I advise you not to trust him. Although he acted selflessly on the Great Fission Day, he learned it from Yao Qi. He hates Yao Qi, but he's always seen her as a role model. He's still a selfish and vicious person at the bottom of his heart." Yang Dingtian nodded and said, "I'll figure this out myself." Yao Ming quickly arrived in front of Yang Dingtian. The two of them were about 10 meters apart. Yang Dingtian said, "What do you want, Mr. Yao Ming? What do you want in order to release Yao Li, Yao Zi, Bo Lu, Awen, and Awu?" Yao Ming said, "I'll get straight to the point. My condition is very simple. I heard that you can cross the border of the abyss?" "Yes." Yang Dingtian nodded. "That's your specialty. I won't ask how you did it." Yao Ming said, "I know that this world is divided into the first dark realm, second dark realm, third dark realm, fourth dark realm, and even above, right?" Yang Dingtian nodded. Yao Ming said, "My condition is very simple. Help us go to the third dark realm, and I'll release Yao Li, Yao Zi, and the others." Yang Dingtian was stunned. He thought that Yao Ming, like Yao Lung, wanted to find a way to cross the border of the abyss and return to the Little Western Paradise. He didn't expect Yao Ming to be even more ambitious. He actually wanted to go to the third dark realm. Yang Dingtian immediately said, "You want to go to the third dark realm to cultivate?" Yao Ming nodded and said, "Of course. Otherwise, would we have nothing to do for the past 200 years? Of course, we can return to the Little Western Paradise. But there's nothing to do in the Little Western Paradise." Yang Dingtian said, "But how can you be sure that you can break through the third dark realm? Maybe it's very dangerous there, and you can't cultivate at all." Yao Ming smiled and said, "Let me ask you. Have you been to the third dark realm?" Yang Dingtian was silent for a moment, then nodded and said, "I have." Yao Ming said, "Then have you broken through?" Yang Dingtian nodded again and said, "I've broken through to the 15th rank." Yao Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. He smiled and said, "Since you can break through, it proves that the third dark realm is very promising." Yang Dingtian said, "But how can you be sure that if I can cultivate there, you can too?" "Ha ha 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 ha. Yao Ming laughed loudly and said, "We're all stronger than you, and we're from the Fox clan of the demonic ghosts. You're just a human. If you can do it, why can't we?" Then Yao Ming said, "I know that in your heart I'm just a villain. Then I'll tell you directly. As long as you let us enter the third dark realm, I'll give Yao Li, Bo Lu, A Wen and A Wu to you. After all, they're my sisters. I can't really kill them." Yang Dingtian said, "Then have you thought about how you'll come back?" Yao Ming said, "Didn't you hear me? I'll give Yao Li, Bo Lu, A Wen and A Wu to you. Little Z will still have to follow us. So after 30 years you'll have to come and get us." This Yao Ming had considered everything thoroughly. But how could he be sure that Yang Dingtian wouldn't die an unnatural death within these 30 years? After all, the Armageddon War was about to begin. How about it? "Sir Yang Dingtian, do you accept this deal?" Yao Ming asked. "Yes, I have no other choice," Yang Dingtian said. An hour later, Yang Dingtian saw Yao Li, Yao Zi, Bo Lu and A Wu again. Immediately, the bodies of several people trembled. Seeing him again after more than half a year, they were incomparably emotional. However, the two sides didn't have any chance to communicate. Yang Dingtian also kept a distance from Yao Ming's team. He definitely wouldn't let himself be surrounded. Yao Ming led 13 half-step saints and above, along with Yang Dingtian, Yao Li, Yao Zi, and the other hostages, directly north to the abyss border. This group of people traveled thousands of miles in a day, constantly going north. Yang Dingtian was always on guard and kept an absolute distance from Yao Ming's team. Just like that, after a few days and nights, they traveled tens of thousands of miles and arrived at the northern end of the second dark realm. Yang Dingtian once again arrived at the abyss border. At the end of the abyss border was the third dark realm. Yang Dingtian really didn't expect that there would be a time when he would return to the abyss border. "Let's begin, Sir Yang Dingtian. Let's see your wonderful performance." Yao Ming smiled. Yang Dingtian took a deep breath and began to release the void-splitting fire directly at the abyss border. Suddenly, a beautiful scene appeared. The void-splitting fire began to split, split and split. It became countless black and white flames, filling the entire abyss border. Yao Ming and the others were completely suffocated. They looked at all this in disbelief. Then, these black and white flames began to fuse and become transparent flames. Suddenly, the entire abyss border became transparent like crystal. Yao Ming and the others were completely dumbfounded. Yang Dingtian said, "Okay, the abyss border has evolved. You can go over. Let go of Yao Li and Yao Zi." Yao Ming gasped for breath. Even though there was no air here, he suppressed the excitement in his heart and smiled at Yang Dingtian. "In order for us to be at ease, I would like to invite Sir Yang Dingtian to follow us." Yang Dingtian frowned slightly and said, "Yao Ming, you can't let me go, right?" Of course, if Yang Dingtian went back, how would Yao Ming and the others leave the third dark realm and return to the little western paradise? Come pick them up 30 years later? Was that a lie? Yao Ming immediately chuckled, and then he placed his sword against Yao Li's neck and said, "No matter what, you don't have a choice, right? If you don't come with us, Yao Li and Yao Zi will die." Yang Dingtian said, "She's your sister." Yao Ming shrugged and said, "It doesn't matter." Yao Li's eyes almost split open, and she said loudly, "Yang Dingtian, go, go. Otherwise, I'll die in front of you." Yang Dingtian fell silent, and then he said, "Yao Ming, I can go to the third dark realm with you, but you must let Yao Li and Yao Zi go." Yao Ming smiled and said, "That's impossible. You won't listen if I let them go. You can flash, so who can catch you?" Yang Dingtian took a deep breath and said, "Since it's like that, then kill them. I won't submit." Yao Ming's face suddenly twitched, and then he smiled. "How about this? I can let Yao Zi, Bo Lu, A Wen, and A Wu go. However, Yao Zi must stay behind with us. What do you think? I must have a hostage that can control you." Yao Ming was very smart, and he immediately noticed that Yao Li was the most important to Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian thought for a while, and then he nodded. "All right, let them go." Yao Ming waved his hand and said, "Let them go." In an instant, over a dozen half-saints released Bo Lu and the others from their shackles. On the other hand, Yao Ming personally grabbed Yao Li's arm. Bo Lu spoke slowly. Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, we'll stay together if we stay, and we'll leave together if we leave. Yao Zi spoke loudly. Right, if worse comes to worst, we'll die together. Yang Dingtian spoke word by word. From now onward, I'm your new leader. So obey my orders and leave immediately. Bo Lu instantly shuddered. Yang Dingtian spoke word by word once more. Leave. Immediately. Now. This is an order. Bo Lu glanced deeply at Yang Dingtian. And then he didn't say another word before grabbing Yao Zi and dashing off swiftly. On the other hand, a Wen and a Wu glanced at Yang Dingtian before they dashed off as well. In the blink of an eye, all of them had vanished without a trace. All right, Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, please go ahead, said Yao Ming. Yang Dingtian glanced at Yao Ming and laughed coldly in his heart. Vicious idiot. If you want to die, then I'll grant you your wish. After that, Yang Dingtian didn't say another word and directly jumped into the purified abyss. When he saw Yang Dingtian jump down, Yao Ming immediately pulled Yao Li along and jumped down as well. The remaining half-saints all jumped down as well. Chapter 872. Of course, the best way was to snatch Yao Li from Yao Ming's hands when passing through the abyss border. However, no one could do this because when passing through the abyss border, one's entire body would fall into a very strange state. It was as if one was traveling through time and space, completely unable to move. Yang Dingtian's plan was to instantly enter the third dark realm, because it was daytime there, and there was a thick devouring fog everywhere. Once Yao Ming passed, all the energy in his body would be crazily devoured. In an instant, his reaction would be to protect himself. At that time, he would not be able to care about Yao Li at all. The dozen or so half-step saints who had been surrounding him could not care about him at all. At this moment, Yang Dingtian immediately made his move. He flashed and snatched Yao Li, then flashed away. As for Yao Ming and the dozen or so half-step saints, they would stay in the third dark realm. There was a saying that one would not die if one did not seek death. When passing through the abyss border, time seemed to stop, so there was basically no concept of time. The first time would feel like a long, long time. And Yang Dingtian would have a general feeling, and roughly know when the travel would end. When the travel was about to end, Yang Dingtian silently counted in his heart. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 1, 0. Whoosh! Yang Dingtian suddenly rushed out of the abyss border, and arrived at the third dark realm. At this moment, there was a thick devouring fog everywhere. Under the sunlight, the entire world was golden, and could not see anything at all. Yang Dingtian held his breath, and immediately enveloped his entire body with the void-rending fire, to purify the surrounding illusion. In an instant, whoosh! Yao Ming grabbed Yao Li's hand tightly, and rushed out of the abyss border, suddenly appearing in this field of vision. The first time he entered the third dark realm, he was temporarily at a loss because he could not react in time. The feeling of traveling through time and space stopped. Then he felt his body being devoured and constantly falling. He would fall into extreme fear. Almost everyone was no exception. This was because most people's reactions to the unknown were similar. Sure enough, after coming over, Yao Ming was temporarily at a loss. Then he felt the energy in his body being devoured crazily. He cried out in anger, and used his profound qi to desperately protect himself. Now was the time to make a move. So, Yang Dingtian suddenly flashed over. Like lightning, he directly snatched Yao Li away. Then, he used blink and instantly disappeared without a trace. At the same time, the dozen or so half-saints by Yao Ming's side had completed their teleportation and charged into the third dark domain. At this time, the edge of the abyss began to condense rapidly, and it was about to recover into a void-rending fire. Yao Ming felt his energy being devoured, and Yao Li disappearing from his hand. He immediately knew that he had been tricked by Yang Dingtian. He was furious. If they chased after Yang Dingtian, they would soon be dead. Trying to catch up to Yang Dingtian in the third dark domain was simply a pipe dream. Of course, if they didn't chase after Yang Dingtian, they would be dead for sure. It was just a matter of time. In short, Yao Ming and the others were doomed, because they did not have the spatial rending flame, or an energy shield. Once all of their energy was devoured, it would be their time of death. At this time, Yang Dingtian had already disappeared without a trace. But what Yang Dingtian did not know was, Yao Ming did not chase after them, nor did he wait for death. Instead, he made an unexpected move. Whoosh! He suddenly jumped into the abyss border. That's right, he jumped back. At this time, the transparent spatial rending fire at the abyss border was rapidly shrinking and condensing. If he did that, it was very likely that he would be reduced to ashes. After seeing Yao Ming's action, the remaining dozen or so half-saints also jumped into the abyss border, in an attempt to return to the second dark domain. Yao Ming succeeded, before the spatial rending fire completely condensed, and the abyss border completely recovered. He successfully returned to the second dark domain. It was a narrow escape. However, the dozen or so half-saints around him were not so lucky. Only 4 of them returned to the second dark domain in one piece. 4 of them were already badly mutilated. The remaining half were completely reduced to ashes. They did not even have a complete corpse. Yao Ming immediately gritted his teeth and said sternly, Yang Dingtian, I will definitely tear you to pieces. Yao Li Yaozi, I will tear you to pieces. Tear you to pieces. He had always been confident in his cunning, but he did not expect to fall into Yang Dingtian's trap. He did go to the third dark domain, but he returned after half a fart's time. More than half of the half-saints around him had been killed. Now he was completely at a disadvantage in his battle with Yao Lung. Yao Ming gritted his teeth and thought for a while. Yang Dingtian will definitely return to the second dark domain. We will patrol the abyss border. We must catch them. A half-saint beside him said hatefully, Young master, should we go to Yao Zi and Bo Lu? They must not have gone far. Yao Ming said, Are you an idiot? Right now, capturing Yang Dingtian is easier than capturing Bo Lu and Yao Zi. Then, Yao Ming led the remaining half-saints and quickly patrolled along the abyss border. They must encounter Yang Dingtian, then capture and torture him to death. Of course, Yao Ming could only dream on. After the void fissure fire at the abyss border completely condensed, it directly flew several hundred kilometers and re-entered Yang Dingtian's body. Meanwhile, Yang Dingtian had completely disregarded the mystic qi, as he hugged Yao Li and constantly flashed towards the south. In an instant, he flashed 1,000 to 2,000 kilometers. The void fissure fire enveloped the two of them. Everywhere it passed, it purified any devouring fog. The two of them were safe and sound. Yao Li seemed to be a little embarrassed being hugged by Yang Dingtian like this, but she still stared at Yang Dingtian's face. They had not seen each other for more than half a year. When they met again, she was actually saved. This feeling was really very strange. Very soon, Yang Dingtian arrived at the abyss border 2,000 kilometers to the south. He released the void fissure fire to the abyss border once more. Immediately, the void fissure fire split apart again, splitting into countless black and white dual fires, then started condensing into transparent fire. The entire abyss border became transparent crystal, thoroughly purified. Yang Dingtian pulled Yao Li's hand and suddenly leaped, jumping into the abyss border. A moment later, Yang Dingtian leaped out of the abyss border and returned to the second dark domain. Then he did not stop at all, directly speeding toward the southern part of the second dark domain. Because when Yang Dingtian told Bo Lu and the rest to hurry up and leave just now, it was to have them go to the place where they met for the first time. Yang Dingtian used mouth movements. Yao Zi, A1, and Awu did not notice. But Bo Lu clearly noticed it, and immediately led the 3 of them to speed toward that place. Yang Dingtian brought Yao Li and swiftly flashed, heading toward the agreed place. His speed was so fast that it defied the natural order. Moreover, he did not care about the consumption of celestial qi at all, using the demonic spirit mist cloak's flash technique. When his celestial qi was exhausted, he immediately sat down cross-legged and used the mystic gathering pill to recover, while Yao Li stood guard beside him. Just like that, in just a few hours, Yang Dingtian actually caught up with Bo Lu and Yao Zi. They were still far from the rendezvous point, but he had caught up. Of course, this was not a chance encounter. In the vast dark domain, the probability of a chance encounter was almost zero. It was Yang Dingtian who calculated their route and roughly knew where they were, so he specifically chased after them. After meeting, Yao Zi shouted loudly, wanting to rush into Yang Dingtian's arms immediately. She completely ignored Yao Li's stern gaze. Yang Dingtian let her hug him for 2 seconds, then directly pulled her by the arm. Without any greetings, he quickly sped toward the south without any pause. Right now, the second dark domain was too chaotic and too complicated. Yang Dingtian had become the greatest enemy of both camps at the same time. They had to leave this place as soon as possible. If they encountered a large number of experts from both camps, Yang Dingtian might be able to escape, but if he wanted to escape with the 5 of them, it would not be so easy. Therefore, after meeting them, they only nodded and continued to run toward the south. As they ran, Yang Dingtian released countless wraith detection. If they encountered any energy fluctuations, they would immediately change their route to avoid them. This was because they were not elemental creatures, but fox demon experts from both camps. After a few days and nights, the 5 of them finally ran for tens of thousands of miles without sleep and rest. They arrived at the southern end of the second dark domain. In front of them was the border of the abyss. Passing through this border of the abyss was the first dark domain. Yang Dingtian, Yao Li and Bo Lu looked at each other. Subsequently, Yang Dingtian turned to look at the second dark domain behind them and laughed. Now, even if you don't follow me back to the human kingdoms, the second dark domain has turned into a mess. Of course we'll go with you. Yao Zi grabbed Yang Dingtian's arm tightly and said, I want to follow you for the rest of my life. The days when you weren't around felt like years to me, so I've already confirmed my feelings. Yang Dingtian's mind automatically filtered out the childish words behind Yao Zi's words. The days felt like years to her, not because Yang Dingtian was not around, but because there was no harvest in the second dark domain. Everyone would feel the same way. Yao Li said, We've already sworn that we'll follow you and fight alongside you for the rest of our lives. Unfortunately, we haven't broken through to Half-Saint. Yang Dingtian sighed. In the future, it might be very, very difficult to break through to Half-Saint. Then, Yang Dingtian released the Void Fissure Fire and entered the border of the abyss. The Void Fissure Fire quickly split and finally condensed into a transparent flame. Immediately, the border of the abyss was purified like a crystal. Are you ready? Follow me home to my home, Yang Dingtian said. Your home is my home, Yao Zi hurriedly said. Yang Dingtian automatically filtered again, and then jumped into the abyss. Yao Li, Yao Zi, Bo Lu and the others also jumped into the abyss, and followed Yang Dingtian back to the human countries. Chapter 873. After entering the first dark realm, everyone was finally completely safe. Then the 6 of them once again dug a deep cave with 4 rooms and 2 living rooms. They rested and chatted inside. The situation in the second dark realm was more serious than Yang Dingtian had imagined. Elemental creatures did not appear very rarely, but they did not appear at all. The only ones that appeared were demon spirits. However, every time it appeared, it meant a disaster. In the Great Fission, the only ones that were not affected were the demon spirits. After the Great Fission, many demon spirits came to the surface and dominated, killing countless people. Yao Li and the others listened to Yang Dingtian completely. After the Great Fission ended, Yao Leng warmly invited them to join, but Yao Li did not agree. Instead, she left resolutely. 3 days after the Great Fission ended, Yao Leng and Yao Ming's teams did not kill each other. However, 3 days later, they began to fight non-stop. However, this battle did not last very long, because both sides could be considered to be evenly matched. Of course, there was something more important, and that was the extinction of elemental creatures. This was the most serious fact. This meant that hundreds of Fox Clan experts had to stay in the second dark realm, without air and food for close to 200 years. This was a complete nightmare. They were martial artists, not meditators nor artists. It was very difficult for them to pass the time. Later, both teams thought of Yang Dingtian. They thought that he was a human, and did not come from the door of darkness. He must have passed through the border of the abyss. Therefore, both teams began to search for Yang Dingtian again. Although Yao Li and the others tried their best to hide, they were still discovered more than half a month ago. They were all captured by Yao Ming and used as hostages to threaten Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian did not tell Yao Li and the others about the new Naga. However, Yang Dingtian told them everything about Yao Lung. Yao Zi said in surprise, He's that shameless? Yao Li and Bo Lu were not surprised. Yao Li said, Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, Yao Lung's behavior is very common in Little Western Paradise. We've lived for too long, so our hearts are cold. We've thought through everything thoroughly. For the sake of benefits, for the sake of survival, they'll do anything. Then, Yao Li said, In fact, before I met His Excellency Yang Dingtian, I always thought that the most outstanding leader was someone like my sworn brother Yao Qi. Furthermore, I can say that if Yao Lung was replaced by Yao Qi, he would have performed even better during the Great Fission. But after the Great Fission, he will be even more ruthless towards His Excellency Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian hesitated for a moment and said, As for Mr. Yao Qi's ruthlessness, I have fully understood it. Yao Li did not pay attention to Yang Dingtian's words at first. Then she said in shock, How do you know brother Yao Qi? He went to the human countries. He once mentioned something about the human countries to me. It seemed like Yao Rao had successfully borrowed a seed from the human countries. He wanted to bring her back and marry her. Then Yao Li's eyes widened. She said, The seed that Yao Rao borrowed, could it be yours, Your Excellency Yang Dingtian? Yang Dingtian nodded and said, That's right. Yao Rao is my wife. We have a baby left. The baby of the demigod's descendant Yang Yi. Yao Li and Yao Zi were instantly stunned. Then, Yao Zi's beautiful eyes lit up. She actually looked directly at Yang Dingtian's private parts. Fuck, this little girl's gaze is too direct. She's completely restless. Clearly, she was very curious about the baby of the demigod's descendant. She also wanted to have one with Yang Dingtian. However, Yao Li thought of something else and said, Then, did my elder brother Yao Qi go to the human countries and snatch your wife and child away? Because no one can stop him when he wants to do something. Yang Dingtian nodded and said, Yes, he went to my house and killed Yao Li. He stole Yao Rao and Yang Yi. Yao Li's expression changed. Yao Zi was furious. She said, How could he do that? I'm done with him. Don't worry, Mr. Yang Dingtian. After we return to the Little Western Paradise, we'll definitely force him to return your wife and child. Yao Li's face was pale. Clearly, no one could stop Yao Qi from doing anything. Even she could not stop him, let alone Yao Zi. I am sorry. Yao Li said. Why didn't you say so before? Yang Dingtian said. It wasn't the right time to say it. However, now that you're going to follow me back to the human countries, I have to make things clear. Yao Li did not know what to say. She could only say again, I am sorry. No need to be sorry, Yang Dingtian said. I've already been to the Little Western Paradise and brought back my wife and child. They're not hurt at all. Ah, Yao Zi was shocked. How is that possible? Yao Qi is very powerful. You're no match for him now. Back then, you weren't even worth a finger of his. Fuck, this girl is so direct. Yang Dingtian was silent for a moment and said, There are many things that don't depend on martial arts. Then, Yang Dingtian said to Yao Li, There's something you need to be mentally prepared for. Yao Li looked up and said, Tell me. Yang Dingtian said, Yao Qi is dead. What? Yao Li's body trembled, as if she was struck by lightning. She lost all reaction. After a long while, her beautiful eyes lost focus. She said, How is that possible? How is that possible? He's so powerful. How could he die? Who else in this world can kill him? It seemed that Yao Li's admiration for Yao Qi was deeply engraved in her bones. Yang Dingtian said, Speaking of which, I have a lot to do with his death. Yao Li said, You killed him? No. Yang Dingtian said, I'm not that powerful. If he wanted to kill me, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. However, I'm the one who indirectly caused his death. Tell me. Yao Li grabbed Yang Dingtian's arm, and stabbed it into his flesh. Yang Dingtian said, "I'll tell you everything in detail. I won't exaggerate or embellish anything. Of course, if you don't want to go to the human world with me, I can help you. I can help you return to the little Western paradise." "No, I'm determined to go with you," Yao Zi said quickly. "Yao Qi is so shameless. He deserves to die." It seemed that Yao Zi was not interested in Yao Qi at all. Yao Li said, "All right, tell me." Yang Dingtian said, "I'll have to start with Yao Rao and me." Then, Yang Dingtian told her the whole story. From her meeting Yao Rao, to her getting pregnant, to Yao Rao giving birth to Yang Yi, to Yao Li's appearance and coercion, to Yao Qi killing Yao Li and kidnapping Yao Rao and Yang Yi. Yang Dingtian was a little more concise about this part. However, from Yang Dingtian swallowing Yao Li's silver dragon blood essence, entering the little Western paradise, and turning into the speechless tribe, Yang Dingtian told her everything in great detail. He did not miss a single detail. "Wow, Mr. Yang Dingtian, you can turn into the speechless tribe. Then I love you even more," Yao Zi said. Immediately, Yao Li gnashed her teeth and wished for nothing more than to slap her younger sister. Yang Dingtian continued. He told her how he met Jia, met Yao Qi, and became the great sage's disciple. Then he told her how he was seen through by Yao Qi, and how he was played by Yao Qi. Finally, he told her how Yongxi and Wentian plotted to kill Yao Qi. How did Yao Qi die in front of him? Every detail was explained clearly. Of course, Yang Dingtian did not tell her that Yongxi was taken over by Wentian. It was not time yet. Finally, Yang Dingtian said, "Yao Li, you're right. No one can kill Yao Qi except for himself." Back then, he knew that it might be a trap, but he still jumped in anyway. Then Yang Dingtian said mockingly, "Actually, I'm the same. If I were him, I would have jumped in too. It's just that I was blessed. I jumped in and got the void fire. But when he jumped in, he was turned into ashes." Yao Li did not react after hearing that. Yao Zi's eyes were full of stars. She said, "So Yao Qi is so powerful. I always thought that he was boring and stupid. Mr. Yang Dingtian, you're so useless. Not only were you played by Yao Qi, but you were also played by Jia." Yang Dingtian smiled bitterly. This little girl was too direct. Yao Zi said, "Sigh. I really regret not realizing Yao Qi's power earlier. If I knew that he was so cool, I might have fallen in love with him." Yang Dingtian was speechless. Suddenly Bola said, "Chairman Yao Qi is the most outstanding leader and hero. But to people like us, Mr. Yang Dingtian is the most worthy leader to follow." Then Bola said, "Princess Yao Li, I don't care what your decision is, but as long as Mr. Yang Dingtian is alive, I will follow him. So, if you want to return to Little Western Paradise, please forgive me for not being able to follow you." Awan and Awu nodded. Us too. To Bolu, Awan and Awu, Yao Qi's wisdom was not very attractive to them. It was too scary to follow such a leader. What they wanted was recognition, equality, and trust. Yao Zi stared at Yang Dingtian for a long time. Just now, Yang Dingtian had said that she was useless. But Yao Qi was the main character. She was so smart, so powerful, so cool. She was an idol. Yang Dingtian was completely overshadowed by her. Yao Zi felt that liking Yang Dingtian didn't give her any face at all. But then again, it was not good to fall in love with someone else. Then she comforted herself. Although Yang Dingtian was not as powerful as Yao Qi, he should be the second most powerful. However, he should be ranked second. Furthermore, Yao Qi treated Yang Dingtian as a close friend before her death. It was evident that Yang Dingtian was still very formidable. Then, Yao Zi suddenly said, "Mr. Yang Dingtian, after Jia gave birth to the child, she was really close to you." To stop her unrealistic thoughts, Yang Dingtian nodded and admitted, Yes. Although we were enemies, Jia is my wife now." "That's great." Yao Zi said, "Jia is the most outstanding woman in Little Western Paradise. She's the dream lover of the young masters of the big tribes. She's also Yao Qi's fiancée. She's so powerful and beautiful. Even someone with such a high status would like you. It's obvious that you're a good person. Liking you is very honorable." Yang Dingtian was speechless. Yao Zi's brain could not be measured by a normal female's. She was very similar to the two-dimensional girls on Earth. Her way of thinking had always been very strange. Yang Dingtian looked at Yao Li and said, "All right, take your time to digest this. We'll have a good night's sleep tonight and leave tomorrow. You can think about it. There's no rush to make a decision." Yao Li shook her head and said, "There's no need to think about it. I'm not a narrow-minded woman. Brother Yao Qi was not killed by you. Even if you killed him, I won't change my mind. There's no right or wrong between the two of you. You're all standing on your own side. Moreover, he's the one who wronged you, not the other way around." Then, Yao Li desperately raised her head and held back her tears. She said, "This is good too. I can follow you wholeheartedly and complete your career. Perhaps your career is the way of the king. It's the greatest." Yang Dingtian said, "All reality, all life is great. Therefore saving reality is definitely a great thing." Then Yang Dingtian said, "All right, let's go to sleep. We'll leave tomorrow morning." Then, the 6 of them returned to their own rooms. Yao Zi's beautiful eyes turned, as if she had a different idea. But soon, her sister Yao Li grabbed her by the ear and pulled her into her own room. It seemed that Yao Li would definitely not shower tonight. Even if she did, she would shower with Yao Zi. In any case, Yao Zi could not be allowed to leave his side. Otherwise, she would definitely come to Yang Dingtian's room. The next morning, even though the entire first dark realm was melted by the sun, the 6 of them still got up and hurried on. However, they were not as desperate as they were in the second dark realm, because it was safe here. Of course, they occasionally encountered elemental creatures, but they were no longer in the mood to hunt, because the elemental creatures here were too weak. 3 days and 3 nights later, the 6 of them reached the end of the first dark realm. The border of the abyss appeared in front of them again. After passing through the border of the abyss, they would arrive at the human kingdom. Yang Dingtian released the void fissure fire and purified the border of the abyss. Then the 6 of them jumped in. As if they were traveling through time, the 6 of them passed through the border of the abyss. When they opened their eyes again, they were already filled with ice and snow. They had returned to the human kingdom. This was the extreme north of the human kingdom, the border of the abyss. Previously, the cold at the border of the abyss was almost unbearable for Yang Dingtian. However, now that he had broken through to the half-saint realm, the cold was not too serious for him. In fact, his mystic fire could even provide heat for the others. After a few days and nights, the 6 of them walked out of the terrifying coastal area. Then, they stepped on the ice and snow that filled the sky. Tens of thousands of miles to the southwest was Cloud Sky City, their home. Yang Dingtian led the 5 of them, and could not wait to return home as quickly as possible. Chapter 874. That night, Yang Dingtian experienced what it meant to be like a wolf or a tiger. He also understood what it meant to not judge a book by its cover. Yin was born with a big chest, but she was the most useless when it came to that. She was defeated very early on. Qin Jiaojiao was very loud at the start, but in the end, she was about to cry and hide in a corner trembling. Mu Lianyi's body was the strongest, but she couldn't do it either, and was defeated very quickly. Ningro was not to be underestimated. She really made Yang Dingtian see her in a new light. It seemed like she was only dabbling in it before. Now little Ningning was already in her teens. She had always wanted to have a child, but she wasn't able to conceive 2 years ago. Now that Yang Dingtian had returned, it just so happened that it was her period. Hence, she was going all out, and was determined to get pregnant. Otherwise, she didn't know when Yang Dingtian would return. The most amazing ones were Wu Maji and Yao Rao. These 2 were really demons who wanted to eat up all the bones in a person. They were completely sucking the marrow out of him. They only stopped when it was almost dawn, when Yang Dingtian's toes were about to cramp. In the end, they didn't even have time to talk about Li Qing, or how much they missed him. They just lay down and fell asleep. Yang Dingtian didn't even have time to take a shower. He slept all the way until night fell. Yang Dingtian was about to get up when Wu Maji said, "Anyway, it's already dark. Why don't we not get up and continue?" Yang Dingtian jumped out of bed in shock and ran to take a shower and change his clothes. Wu Maji covered her mouth and giggled on the bed. She didn't have any intention of getting up to help Yang Dingtian shower and change his clothes. It was Yin who rubbed her waist and tried her best to get up and help Yang Dingtian shower in the bathtub. Yin gently helped Yang Dingtian wash his body, shave his beard, and comb his hair. Logically speaking, the two of them should have countless things to say, but neither of them wanted to open their mouths. They just wanted to enjoy this quiet sweetness. Originally, Yang Dingtian should have asked if his family was doing well. Are the children well behaved? How much I miss you. Yin, on the other hand, should she ask if Yang Dingtian had a hard time in the past 2 years? They missed him so much. They were together every day, praying for him. Master's wife and his mother, Madame Shiman, didn't even dare to eat meat anymore. They were wholeheartedly accumulating good karma for Yang Dingtian. However, the two of them realized that they didn't need to say anything. That kind of longing, had already been deeply engraved in the bones. Yin quickly helped Yang Dingtian put on his clothes and combed his hair. Finally, Yang Dingtian looked like a human again. He was 10 years younger, and no longer looked like a middle-aged uncle in his 30s or 40s. Then Yang Dingtian suddenly remembered something. He took out a gemstone from his space ring and put it on Yin's snow-white neck. He said softly, "A friend asked me to give this to you. Is it a man or a woman?" Yin asked. "A woman." Yang Dingtian said, "The Queen of New Naga." "Wow, that's amazing," Yin said. "Why didn't you bring her home? I don't mind her being an elder sister." Yang Dingtian shook his head and said, "We are just good friends." Yin said, "I don't believe that she gave this to me. She must have said that it was for the woman you love the most, right?" Yang Dingtian touched her butt and said, "Didn't they say that pregnancy makes one stupid for 3 years? How did you become so smart?" Yin stroked the pendant and said, "Husband, do the other sisters have this?" "No, only you have it," Yang Dingtian said. "That's great." Yin kissed him happily and said, "I love you so much." Yang Dingtian was speechless. "Aren't you sisters very close now?" After helping Yang Dingtian take care of everything, Yin said, "Okay, you can take care of your business. Master and Martial Uncle Qin must have been waiting for you for a long time." "Where is our baby girl?" Yang Dingtian asked. "My mother is taking care of her," Yin said. "When you come back to sleep, I will carry her for you to play with." "Okay." Yang Dingtian kissed her lips and pinched her small waist before leaving. Master Dongfang Minmi, Qin Wanshou, and the other higher-ups of the Council of Light didn't wait for long. It was only 8 hours. When Yang Dingtian entered, they were chatting happily with Yao Li and Bo Lu. When he entered, everyone's eyes immediately looked over. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but blush. After all, he had just returned and had been debauched for an entire day. It was really embarrassing. Master Dongfang Minmi smiled and said, "Actually, we can wait until tomorrow." Immediately, Yang Dingtian felt even more embarrassed. Next, they didn't immediately get down to business. Instead, they held a small banquet. It could be considered as a welcome for Yang Dingtian, and also as a reception for friends and comrades from afar. This was even better because this way, Yang Dingtian's wives and children could all be at the banquet. Not only that, Qin Huayu and Song Lihua's children and Kuei Ning's children also came. That's right, Qin Huayu and Song Lihua also had children. Kuei Ning and 5th Miss Qin also had children. Even Zhao Mu had already married and had children. As for Zhu Hongxue, he was still alone. And he didn't seem to have any intention of marrying. This person's brain was more stubborn. It would probably take a long time for him to come around. Yang Dingtian's eldest daughter, Yang Ningning, had also applied for leave from the Heavenly Edict Academy and was brought back by Qin Mengli. Yang Dingtian almost didn't dare to recognize her. She, who was about 13 years old, was already slender and very beautiful. "Daddy." When she saw Yang Dingtian, she rushed over like a flame and hung on Yang Dingtian's neck. Then Ning Roer cast a serious gaze from the side. However, the lethality to little Ningning was completely zero. Little Ningning hung on Yang Dingtian's neck and carefully looked at Yang Dingtian's face for a while. Then she said, "Daddy, you've become more handsome." Then, she kissed Yang Dingtian's beard stubble and came down. Then, she walked to Qin Huayu and called out obediently, "Daddy, Auntie." She only called Qin Huayu Daddy when she grew up in the past 1 or 2 years. However, she had a good relationship with Song Lihua, and even admired Song Lihua a little. She felt that she was very capable. Moreover, she had repeatedly expressed in front of Song Lihua that it was a loss for her to marry her biological father. She said that her father wasn't worthy of Song Lihua. Even when Qin Huayu was beside her, she still said the same thing. Qin Huayu didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he also deeply agreed. Because more and more people came, other than the frontline commanders and those on duty at the Taekwondo League, the remaining higher-ups of the Council of Light were almost all here. Therefore, the banquet had to be expanded. They didn't talk about business at the banquet. Yang Dingtian carried his youngest daughter, Yang Yan, and shuttled through the crowd to talk. This little baby was already 3 years old. She was really cute. Her little face was really like an apple, delicate and pink. She was so soft in his arms that Yang Dingtian couldn't bear to let go. This baby actually didn't know Yang Dingtian. But she wasn't shy at all. She smiled sweetly at everyone. She was the kind of baby that made people's hearts melt just by looking at her. She really wanted to be liked by everyone. Yang Qin was already 4 years old, almost 5 years old. She had been like a princess since she was young. Now she didn't like to be carried. She liked to wear the most beautiful clothes, and let others hold her hand. Otherwise, she would just sit there quietly. And Wu Maji's daughter was also almost 4 years old. Although she was Ah Chao's twin, she really showed an incomparably stunning beauty. It wasn't just Yang Dingtian. Almost everyone present had never seen such a beautiful little girl. She had snow-white and pink skin, big blue eyes that were like gemstones, and her hair was golden. She was like a doll carved out of white jade. This kind of beauty made even Yang Dingtian feel like he had to be careful when carrying her. Moreover, this little girl was so young, but she was already so arrogant. This made many little boys feel pressured and didn't dare to play with her. However, when she saw Yang Dingtian carrying Yang Yan, even though she tried her best to hold it in, she still pursed her lips and couldn't help but tear up. Today, she wore the most beautiful clothes, just to make her father like her the most. She wanted to be her father's most beautiful daughter. When Yang Dingtian saw this, he used his other hand to carry his doll-like daughter. He couldn't help but kiss her little face. Then he simply sat down, one on each side of his knee. Then, he let Yang Qin lean in his arms. He interacted with his 3 daughters while chatting with the Council of Light's higher-ups. Yang Dingtian had always been very sensitive to children's hearts. He was already an incompetent father, so he was very concerned about their feelings. As for boys, he didn't need to carry them in his arms. Yang Dingtian realized that among his sons, Yang Yi was the smartest. Yang Li's personality was the strongest. As for Ah Cho, he was a little heartless and clingy. He was also Yang Li's follower. Therefore, not only his master's wife and mother-in-law, even Dongfang Minmi said that Ah Cho was the most fortunate. Yin Yin felt that Yang Li was too strong-willed and had a strong personality. She was just like his mother, afraid that he wouldn't easily find happiness in the future. As for Yang Yichen, although he was the second oldest child, he was the one who needed the most love. Because his biological father left, he was more dependent on the love of his elders. Because of this, among the few little boys, Yang Dingtian purposely acted as if he was the closest to him. And now, Yang Yichen's identity had become Yang Dingtian's adopted son. He was the future lord of Cloud Sky City, and this had been announced to the public long ago. Therefore, even Yang Li kept saying that he was the future lord of Cloud Sky City. Just like this, the banquet was carried out in laughter. After the banquet ended, Yang Dingtian and the higher-ups of the Council of Light entered the conference room to listen to the reports of the important matters of the human countries in the past 2 years. As there were too many things to report, they started with the most important things. The first thing was the drastic changes in the Vulture Palace. The changes in the Vulture Palace were completely different from what Yang Dingtian had imagined. Chapter 875. In Yang Dingtian's imagination, Wu Daozi and Wulingzi would definitely have internal strife and kill each other. But the result was Wulingzi surrendered. Yes, he surrendered. As a result, Wu Daozi became the new master of the Vulture Palace, and Wulingzi became the supreme elder of the Vulture Palace. Yes, it was the supreme elder, not the supreme palace master. And the young palace master of the Vulture Palace directly became Yang Dingtian's wife, Spirit Rabbit. As for the original little Princess Vulture, she was sent out again to protect herself by marriage. This time, she was betrothed to Dongli, but Dongli was already a eunuch. In short, Wulingzi, a weirdo, had greatly refreshed the bottom line of a peerless master. It was completely unimaginable that a person could be so cowardly. How afraid of death was he? When an ordinary man was angry, blood would splatter 5 steps away. He was a sage-level master, one of the top 5, or even top 3 masters in the world. But he lived such a cowardly life. If it were Yang Dingtian, he would have killed himself long ago. But this was undoubtedly bad news for Yang Dingtian. If Wu Daozi and Wulingzi did not have internal strife, Yang Dingtian would not be able to stir up trouble inside, and he would not be able to seize the Vulture Palace. Moreover, Wu Daozi was different from Wulingzi. He was extreme and ruthless, but he was not necessarily smart. He was very stubborn, and often liked to play games of life and death. Therefore, strategic blackmail had no effect on the Vulture Palace. Dongfang Minmi continued, and there is another piece of bad news. The Vulture Palace and the Snakeman Empire have the intention of formally forming an alliance. As one of the young masters of the evil ways, Dongli is still the prime minister of the Snakeman Empire and has great power. Not only that, but the lords and sect masters of the human nations who were stripped of their authority have all pledged allegiance to the Naga Empire and have taken up important positions, ready to fight back at the human nations. Qin Wancho said, not only that, but the Snakeman Empire's fleets and aerial cavalry have repeatedly provoked our Northwest Fleet over the past year. Their winged cavalry has even violated our airspace many times. Moreover, the Snakeman Empire has been spying on the important bases of the Council of Light more and more. They have tried to steal our top-secret intelligence and destroy our secret bases many times. It seemed that Queen Hai Xian of the Naga Empire had completely decided to walk together with the evil ways and completely overturn the human kingdoms. In this way, it would be very difficult to completely unify the human countries and the Vitality continent before the Doomsday War. The alliance between the Vulture Palace and the Snakeman Empire was very difficult to break. Moreover, the Vulture Palace and the Snakeman Empire had a total of 3 half-saint experts. At present, the Council of Light still only had 1 half-saint expert, Yang Dingtian. Before the Doomsday War, the Snakeman Empire and the Vulture Palace must be dealt with. However, Yang Dingtian had to decide whether to deal with the Snakeman Empire or the Vulture Palace first. Then Yang Dingtian asked, Princess of the Evil Ways, Mu Dan and Dongli, any movements? Dongfang Minmi said, these 2 people have disappeared again. Moreover, even Netherming has not been seen for a long time. Yang Dingtian asked, has Wu Yu returned to the human nations in the Nether Sea? Dongfang Minmi shook his head and said, I don't know. The gate of the human nations in the Skull Hall has been occupied by the Snakeman Empire. Wu Ying has been seriously injured. Yang Dingtian's pupils suddenly shrank. Next, the senior officials of the Council of Light began to report the general situation of the army and the construction of the secret weapons. After more than 2 years of development, the Tiando League's 3 continents and 9 major defense lines had been established. The number of elite troops in the front line had increased to 20 million, and the size of the navy had reached an unprecedented number of nearly 3 million. There were more than 1,000 large and medium-sized warships equipped with super crystal power arrays, and countless small and medium-sized warships. There were more than 2,000 large and medium-sized submarines equipped with super crystal power arrays, and the number of small submarines was less. As for cannons and shells, it was an astronomical number. As for the most important strategic material, Crystal X, an unprecedented huge treasure, was found in the depths of the volcano, in the land of extreme difficulty. At first, it was estimated to be 100,000 caddies, then it became 200,000 caddies, and then 300,000 caddies. As a result, 500,000 caddies had been mined, and it was still being mined. Of course, it was very thin now, and the daily harvest was very little. However, these 500,000 caddies of X-crystal stones were still quite shocking. With these crystals, the rocket technology had advanced by leaps and bounds. The underwater torpedoes, whether it was the speed, the initial attack range, or the explosive power, had undergone a drastic change. It could be said that a ship of 1 to 2,000 tons would be destroyed by a super torpedo. Moreover, the torpedo's underwater speed had reached an astonishing 100 knots, which had surpassed many modern torpedoes on Earth. As for the most important strategic weapon, the large missile, there was no problem with long-range missiles, not to mention 800 miles, 1,000 miles, or even 2,000 miles. However, in terms of accuracy, it was very, very slow. In fact, the accuracy of the large missile's attack was still very, very low. What the warlocks could do was only to constantly correct the mechanical gyroscope. Of course, the shape of the missile was meticulously made to have almost no errors. But even so, the accuracy was still only increased by 70%. This 70% seemed to be a lot. But because the original error was too big, even if it was increased by 70%, the error was still very big. So at present, the large missile could only be used as a deterrent. It was really impossible to hit accurately at present, unless another channel was found to solve the problem of accuracy. Although it was not as good as the large missiles, it had improved by leaps and bounds in the small missiles. Originally, it took about 15 seconds to fly a distance of 4,000 meters. Now it took less than 8 seconds. The highest speed had also directly increased from 2 times the speed of sound to nearly 5 times the speed of sound. The original distance of 4,000 meters, the small missile's error was a few hundred meters, but now it was only a few dozen meters. And such Phoenix-level small missiles were equipped with nearly 200,000 of them. In other words, if they were to fight with the Vulture Palace in the air now, the Tiando League could easily annihilate the entire Black Vulture army of 200,000. However, although 500,000 caddies of Crystal X had been mined, but when it was used, it was still far from enough. Small Phoenix-level missiles, medium and large missiles, large torpedoes, and even large cannons now needed to be used. Therefore, the volcanic mine in the desert of the extreme south was getting thinner and thinner. The higher-ups of the Council of Light could not help but be anxious for the upcoming Doomsday battle. No matter how much they estimated, it was not enough. Therefore, the more such weapons of mass destruction were prepared, the better. Once the Doomsday battle began, there would be no chance to prepare at all. The final report was the problem of martial arts cultivation among the higher-ups of the Council of Light. 2.5 years had passed, and the martial arts cultivation of the entire Council of Light was not very optimistic. Of course, there were a few who were more optimistic, but most people were stagnant. Because they were really too busy. There was really little time for cultivation. Moreover, the density of qi in the human countries at this time was very difficult for experts above the intermediate Great Grandmaster level to make a big breakthrough. When Yang Dingtian left, there were 38 experts above the Great Grandmaster level in the entire Council of Light. Now there were more than 41. Master Dongfang Minmi, even in his busy schedule, broke through from an 8-star level 1 Great Grandmaster to a 9-star level 1 Great Grandmaster. Qin Wancho broke through to a 9-star level 4 Great Grandmaster. And Zhu Hongxue directly broke through to a 9-star level 9 Great Grandmaster from a 9-star level 4 Great Grandmaster. He was only one step away from becoming a Great Grandmaster. Qin Huaiyu also broke through to the Great Grandmaster level. He was waiting for Yang Dingtian's Mystic Fire Lightning to make a real breakthrough. Similarly, Song Chunhua directly broke through to the Great Grandmaster level and was waiting for Yang Dingtian's Mystic Fire Lightning. Wu Maji was originally a 1-star level 5 Great Grandmaster. After more than 2 years, she barely broke through to the 2-star Great Grandmaster level. And Dishi Bian, whom Yang Dingtian was most concerned about, went to cultivate alone more than 2 years ago, and had not returned yet. Therefore, he did not know how much she had broken through in her cultivation. In short, before the Doomsday Battle, it was already very difficult for the higher-ups of the Council of Light to make a big breakthrough in their cultivation. However, this time in the Dark Realm, they had gained a lot. There were many energy essences close to level 9, and some close to level 10. One must know that energy essences close to level 9 meant energy essences close to a 9-star level 9 Great Grandmaster level. And energy essences close to level 10 meant unlimited Great Grandmaster level. At this time, in Yang Dingtian's space ring, there were more than 100 energy essences close to level 10, and 80 energy essences close to level 9. This batch of energy essences was enough to make many people's cultivation advance by leaps and bounds. Everyone was stunned when they heard that there were energy essences that could be swallowed directly to break through. Then they finally understood why there were a large number of half-saint level experts in the Little Western Paradise. And there were even many saint level experts. It turned out that they were all obtained from hunting energy essences in the Dark Realm. This batch of energy essences was undoubtedly a huge temptation. Therefore, the distribution became a big problem. However, it was not a big problem, because this batch of energy essences could only be swallowed by advanced Great Grandmasters. Even with Yang Dingtian's protection, one had to be at least a 6-star Great Grandmaster to be able to swallow the energy essences close to level 9. Otherwise, one would be smashed to pieces in an instant. After discussion, they finally decided they would use this batch of energy essences to create a few top unlimited Great Grandmasters. Therefore, after discussion, they finally decided on the distribution plan of the energy essences. Anyone above 6-star Great Grandmaster level could be on the list, from high to low, until the energy essences were exhausted. Among this batch of unlimited Great Grandmasters, Qin Wanqiu, Dongfang Minmi Dishibian, Duan Rian, Zhua Qingqi, and Cheng Debi were all on the list. In other words, these 6 people would break through to the unlimited Great Grandmaster level regardless of the cost. The remaining energy essences would be distributed. Elder Ning Busi was originally on the list, but because he was too old he declined. Immediately after, Duan Rian also suggested that she was willing to withdraw from the list. The reason was that she had evil energy in her body. Therefore, under the insistence of Yang Dingtian, Dongfang Minmi, and Qin Wanqiu, Duan Rian entered the list again. This was because everyone felt that Duan Rian's desire to fight was extremely strong, and her talent was high enough. They also told Duan Rian not to think too much. Although she had evil energy in her body, it seemed that this level of evil energy would not directly control her will. As for Qin Huayu, Zhu Hongxue, Wu Maji, and the other youngsters, they might have high innate talents, but their cultivation was too low. Furthermore, Yang Dingtian's reserve of energy essence that was close to Class 8 and Class 7 was too little. Therefore, it was very difficult to distribute the energy essences to them this time. Therefore, Master Dongfang Minmi took the lead in swallowing the energy essences to evolve, while Yang Dingtian guarded by the side. Master Dongfang Minmi was now a 9-star level 1 Great Grandmaster, which should be equivalent to level 8. Therefore, the first thing he swallowed was an energy essence close to level 9. He closed his eyes and swallowed directly. Everything was normal. After spending a total of 5 energy essences close to the 9th level, and 4 energy essences close to the 10th level, his master, Dongfang Minmi, directly broke through to the 3rd rank of the 9th level, and entered the ranks of the infinite Great Grandmasters. Next was Qin Wanqiu. The amount of energy essences he consumed was 1 energy essence close to the peak of level 9 less than Dongfang Minmi. After using 4 energy essences close to level 9, and 4 energy essences close to level 10, he also directly broke through to infinite Great Grandmaster. Next was Ning Busi. He consumed a total of 6 energy essences close to level 9, and 4 energy essences close to level 10. He also successfully broke through to infinite Great Grandmaster. Then it was Zhua Qingqi, Duan Rian, and Cheng Dabii. After a few hours, the swallowing of the energy essences ended. Dongfang Minmi, Qin Wanchou, Zhua Qingqi, Ning Busi, Cheng Dabii, and Duan Rian all entered Infinite Great Grandmaster. Suddenly, the Council of Light had 6 more Infinite Great Grandmasters. More than half of the energy essences in Yang Dingtian's storage had not been used up. Dishibian was not around, so he could only leave them for her. However, he did not know where Dishibian had gone. Even Wu Maji, who was always by her side, did not know. After daybreak, they entered the final topic. How to completely solve the problems of the Vulture Palace and the Naga Empire before the Doomsday War. And should they solve the problems of the Vulture Palace or the Naga Empire first? In the end, Yang Dingtian still decided to solve the problems of the Vulture Palace first. In the afternoon, Yang Dingtian left Cloud Sky City and led Bo Lu and Yao Li to the Vulture Palace. As for the reason, it was to take back his wife, Spirit Rabbit. Chapter 876. But Yang Dingtian was right. The Vulture Palace was not only a member of the Tiando League, but also a member of the Council of Light and the Supreme Commander of the Southern Barbarian Continent. Even now, Ling Chuzi was still a member of the Council of Light's Supreme Commander. When Wu Yuming and Yang Dingtian were competing for the position of the leader of the Hidden Sect and the leader of the Tiando League, the Vulture Palace strongly supported them. All of the key positions were added to strengthen Wu Yuming's reputation. Later, Wu Yuming was defeated. Even when the Council of Light and the Vulture Palace went to war, the Vulture Palace did not withdraw from the Council of Light. Moreover, these agreements were all in black and white and had been signed with mystic seals. But in the hands of a truly powerful person, these things were nothing. Even if they were used to wipe one's ass, they would find them too hard. Wu Daozi couldn't be bothered to argue with Yang Dingtian. In any case, there wasn't any meaning to it. Wu Daozi said indifferently, "Did Yang Dingtian come to my Spirit Vulture sect just for this?" Yang Dingtian said, "I originally came for another matter. But after I came, I discovered 2 big things. First, the Vulture Palace's leader is privately accepting. Second, the Naga Empire's forces have entered the Vulture Palace on a large scale. What do you want to do, rebel?" Immediately, Yang Dingtian rebuked with the imposing manner of the leader of the Tiando League. Wu Daozi trembled with anger. He looked at Yang Dingtian and sneered, "Your Excellency, why are you pretending to be confused?" Yang Dingtian said, "I won't tell you. In the eyes of the Council of Light, there is only one leader of the Vulture Palace, and that is Wolingzi. I will go and talk to him." After saying that, Yang Dingtian suddenly flashed and directly flew towards Wolingzi's lonely peak. Wu Daozi couldn't stop him in time, but he wasn't willing to lower himself to chase after him. He immediately snorted coldly, and his eyes couldn't help but fill with anger and killing intent. Yang Dingtian directly entered Wolingzi's thatched hut. Wolingzi sat cross-legged on the ground. He really seemed to have aged a few decades. He no longer had his white hair and youthful complexion. There were wrinkles on his face. When he saw Yang Dingtian come, his eyelids slightly wrinkled, but he didn't say anything. Junior Yang Dingtian greets Senior Wolingzi. Yang Dingtian bowed. Wolingzi cursed in his heart. "Fuck, I've never seen you so polite before. Why are you so polite today?" "I came here today for 2 things, Yang Dingtian said seriously. "First, why did Wu Daozi become the new master of the Vulture Palace? Did something disobedient happen in the Vulture Palace? Second, why did the Serpentine Empire's forces enter the Southern Barbarian Continent?" You must know that the Southern Barbarian Continent is the most important defensive area in the south of the Council of Light. Did the Serpentine Empire's entry inform the Council of Light? This is a rebellion. This is a betrayal. Then, Yang Dingtian said gently, "Senior Wolingzi, I know that there must be internal strife and betrayal in the Vulture Palace. Don't worry, in the Council of Light and the Tiando League, you, Wolingzi, are the true master of the Vulture Palace. As long as you need, we will do our best to help you eliminate the rebellion and bring order to the chaos." Finally, Wulingzi's face twitched violently. He opened his eyes and said, "There's no need, Sir Yang Dingtian. I feel that I'm old, and nephew Wu Daozi is the best in both martial arts and wisdom. Therefore, I've officially passed the position of master of the vulture sect to him. I'm no longer involved in the sect's affairs." Yang Dingtian smiled and said, "Senior Wulingzi, this won't do. The Vulture Palace hasn't withdrawn from the Tiando League and the Council of Light. As long as I don't approve, this will be a random order. But don't worry. I know that you must be under some kind of coercion and have no choice but to say something against your will. You must believe that the Tiando League will stand behind you and help you eliminate the rebellion and bring order to the chaos." Suddenly, Wulingzi jumped in fright and said loudly, "Yang Dingtian, don't do this to me." Yang Dingtian got up and walked outside. Then he said loudly, "Don't worry, Senior Wulingzi. The Council of Light will give you an explanation for the Vulture Palace's rebellion." Yang Dingtian's voice was so loud that the entire Vulture Palace could hear it. Suddenly, many people's hearts trembled. Could it be that Ancestor Wulingzi was going to join forces with Yang Dingtian to eliminate Wu Daozi? Then, everyone should quickly observe the situation and not take sides. Wulingzi was so angry that his whole body trembled. He was restless and rushed out to deny it. But he was a person who cared about his reputation. If he denied it, wouldn't it prove that he was afraid of Wu Daozi? So he just snorted coldly. Everyone heard him and no longer spoke. Then Yang Dingtian came in front of Wu Daozi and said, "Grandfather-in-law, I have one more thing." Wu Daozi's face became extremely ugly. He said, "Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, if you act so recklessly, you won't be able to walk out of the Vulture Palace. Although the temple has a no-kill order for you, if you anger me, I will still kill you." "No, no, no," Yang Dingtian said. "Don't talk big. You can't kill me." "Ha ha ha ha." Wu Daozi laughed wildly and said, "2 years ago, you were just a 9-star 9th-rank Grandmaster. Now you are at most an infinite Grandmaster. You are a frog in a well. Do you know how far the gap between an infinite Grandmaster and a half-saint is? You can't cross it in 100 years. If I want to kill you, it will be as easy as turning over my hand. The reason you are alive is that the Temple Master doesn't want you to be one now. Don't show off like a clown." Yang Dingtian didn't get angry. He said, "The first thing is that I want to take my wife, Ling Tuer, back. 2 years ago, she went back to her mother's home. It's been a long time, and it's time to go back to her real home." In your dreams, Wu Daozi said sternly, "Yang Dingtian, don't force me. Don't force me to kill you here." Yang Dingtian said, "The second matter is that you had once challenged my Radiance Parliament in the Heaven Enlightenment Academy by having a martial arts competition. Today, I challenge you to a duel at the Heavenly Edict Academy 7 days from now. How about it?" Wu Daozi was shocked and looked at Yang Dingtian as if looking at a madman. Was Yang Dingtian stupid? Was his brain flooded with water? Did he know how far an infinite Grandmaster was from a half-saint? He actually dreamed of having a duel with him to get justice? Suddenly Wu Daozi sneered. "Yang Dingtian, do you know? In the duel between you and me in the Forbidden Sea, how much advantage did you have? It was because of Queen Hai Xian and Wu Yoming's secret help that you didn't die. Otherwise, you would have turned into ashes long ago. Moreover, if we have another duel, I won't show mercy, and it won't be a civil duel. Even if there were 10 of you, or even 100 of you, you wouldn't be my match. I could crush you to death with a single finger. Are you sure you want to have a duel?" Yang Dingtian said, "Yes, I'm sure I want to have a duel." Wu Daozi's face turned cold and he said with a smile, "Well, since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Yang Dingtian said, "Since there's an example, how about we make a bet?" Wu Daozi said, "Say it." Yang Dingtian said, "First, if you lose, you will return the position of Vulture Palace Master to Ling Chuzi and be completely exiled from the Vulture Palace. Second, if you lose, you will completely release the freedom of the Spirit Rabbit. How about that?" "Ridiculous, the most ridiculous thing in the world." Wu Daozi laughed. Okay. I promise you anything. Now if I kill you, The Temple of Annihilation can't blame me. Yang Dingtian said. Okay, then it's a deal. 7 days later, at the Heavenly Edict Academy, we will have a duel to the death. It's not a duel to the death, but I will trample you, the master of the hidden sect, who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, to death. Wu Daozi said coldly. Yang Dingtian ignored him and said loudly, Senior Wulingzi, you see, I will definitely get justice for you. 7 days later, I will defeat Wu Daozi, and the Vulture Palace will definitely set things right and restore justice. His voice once again spread throughout the Vulture Palace. Everyone heard that Yang Dingtian wanted to compete with Wu Daozi for Wulingzi and expel him from the Vulture Palace and return to Wulingzi's position. It seemed that they were really colluding. Suddenly, Wulingzi felt like he couldn't wash himself clean. Then, Yang Dingtian's expression changed again, and he said gently, Grandfather Yu, where is the spirit rabbit? I want to take her home. Wu Daozi's face twitched. Anyway, you are going to die soon. You don't need to see her. No, I still want to see her or I won't leave. Yang Dingtian said. Wu Daozi said coldly. Even if you see her, she won't go with you. Yang Dingtian asked. Where is she? I'm here, Sect Master Yang. Then Spirit Rabbit's gentle and clear voice came from not far away. Last time, she had become a real woman. Another 2 years had passed, but she was still as exquisite as ever, as if she was carved from jade. It was just that the outline of her delicate body was more attractive and mature. Her jade-like face was still incomparably bright, as if she was a teenage girl. Will you go back with me? Yang Dingtian asked. Spirit Rabbit came over and looked deeply at Yang Dingtian, then shook her head and said, I want to look after Grandpa. Yang Dingtian said, You can't look after him. You should know what it means that the Snake People Empire has entered the southern barbarian continent. Spirit Rabbit said, It's better than no one watching, or the consequences will be more serious. Yang Dingtian reached out and gently stroked her little face, saying nothing more. Yang Dingtian, let go of your hand, or I'll cut it off. Wu Daozi roared. Spirit Rabbit's delicate body trembled, and she quickly let Yang Dingtian's hand leave her face, and said softly, Sect Master Yang, you can go back. Yang Dingtian said, Rabbit, no matter what I do in the future, I hope you can understand. Yes, I can understand, Spirit Rabbit said. I won't make any requests. No matter what the result is, it's what we deserve. Yang Dingtian nodded at Spirit Rabbit, and then flew out of the Vulture Palace. On the way out of the southern barbarian continent, Yang Dingtian found that there were already countless Snake People troops on the ground, roaring at Yang Dingtian in the sky, provoking him to fight. A male sea serpent flew into the air and blocked Yang Dingtian's path, pointing at Yang Dingtian with a weapon in his hand. Lowly human, this is not where you should be. If you want to go over, crawl under my crotch. Then he used his long snake tail to form a door. Yang Dingtian suddenly drew his sharp sword and slashed down from a distance of a few dozen meters. Swoosh! In an instant, the male sea serpent was turned into a pile of meat paste. Then, Yang Dingtian aimed at the sea serpent army on the ground and cast devil sky-splitting lightning. Pa 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 pa. In an instant, hundreds and thousands of Snake People Empire troops were all turned into charcoal. Yang Dingtian looked at the incomparably huge Snake People Tower in front of him, and at the top, there was a statue of Queen Hai Exane. He slashed with his sword. Rumble! Suddenly, the 100-meter-tall tower shattered and fell down, smashing the Snake People Empire troops below into meat paste. Then, Yang Dingtian said coldly, Your Snake People Empire dared to intrude into the territory of the Tiando League. You're courting death. I'll give you 7 days to get out of here. Otherwise, I'll kill all of you. Yang Dingtian's words were like thunder, echoing in the sky for hundreds of kilometers. Suddenly, the Snake People Empire troops trembled. Then, Yang Dingtian whistled away. Less than 100 kilometers away from the southern barbarian continent, there was a black vulture floating in the air in front of him. A woman wrapped in a black cloak was on the black vulture. Mr. Yang Dingtian, how have you been? A woman's voice sounded. Yang Dingtian was instantly startled. This voice sounded a little familiar, but it was even more unfamiliar. The woman lifted her cloak and revealed her face. It turned out to be Vulture, the vulture of the little princess of the Vulture Palace. She had changed too much. She seemed to have matured by nearly 10 years, and her face was no longer as delicate as before. Instead, it had become gorgeous. Her chest was still relatively flat, but the curves of her waist and buttocks were very enchanting. The little princess in Yang Dingtian's memory had completely disappeared. Mr. Yang Dingtian, you once wanted to support Wu Daozi, but he was even more hostile to you than my great-grandfather. You reap what you sow. Vulture sneered. Yang Dingtian said, You stopped me for this? Vulture said, How about we make a deal? Yang Dingtian said, At present you don't have anything I want. Vulture said, That's not necessarily true. Maybe you'll find something. How about you help me get rid of Wu Daozi, and I'll be your lover. A cheating lover. Yang Dingtian laughed and said, You overestimate your attractiveness. Vulture said, A wife is not as good as a concubine, and a concubine is not as good as a thief. I know this very well. I'm now Dongli's woman. You should feel a sense of accomplishment by stealing his wife. Moreover, I promise I won't let anyone else know. Yang Dingtian said, You really think too highly of me. Why do you think I can get rid of Wu Daozi? Vulture said, Of course you can't do anything to Wu Daozi, but Queen Hai Xian can. As long as you agree to have sex with her, she will completely break off her cooperation with Wu Daozi and withdraw from the southern barbarian continent. She will even join forces with you to expel Wu Daozi. Then my great-grandfather will once again take charge of the Vulture Palace and continue to be neutral like before, and I will become your secret lover. Isn't this the best result? Chapter 877. Yang Dingtian glanced at Vulture. Although this woman's appearance had matured, her brain was completely rusty compared to before. Although she was not wise before, she was very clever. Now even her last bit of cleverness had been lost. But it was strange. Even if she was in dire straits before, she would not come to him for help. In the past she hated Yang Dingtian the most. She would rather be in dire straits than admit defeat in front of Yang Dingtian. Because Yang Dingtian was almost the only man who was good to her. Because of her betrayal, she had to maintain her dignity in front of Yang Dingtian. Unexpectedly, at this time, she actually said that she would be Yang Dingtian's lover. It seemed that she had lived a very, very unhappy life for more than 2 years. Yes, Vulture's life was more than unhappy. Compared to before, it was completely like hell. After Wulingzi lost the supreme status of Vulture Palace, the one who suffered the greatest loss was not Wulingzi but Vulture. Previously in the Vulture Palace, she was only below one person, and above thousands of people. She could call the wind and summon the rain, and there was nothing she could not do. In the Vulture Palace, Spirit Rabbit was completely like an ant. She could hit and scold as she wanted. However, since Wulingzi compromised and surrendered, he was still an expert of the sage level, so naturally, no one dared to provoke him. The status of Vulture had completely plummeted, although no one dared to directly mock or bully her in front of her. But the whole Vulture Palace was ignoring her and giving her the cold shoulder. On the other hand, Spirit Rabbit was loved and respected by all the disciples of Spirit Vulture Palace, because she was extremely beautiful and very kind. After Wu Daozi came to power, his means of eliminating dissidents were very cruel. Only Spirit Rabbit's kindness could neutralize his cruelty. In the past 2 years, she had saved countless people. Therefore, Spirit Rabbit was completely like an angel in Vulture Palace, completely replacing the previous position of Vulture's princess. Moreover, the disciples of the Vulture Palace admired her from the bottom of their hearts. Compared to Vulture, no one cared about it at all. Previously, whenever the disciples of the Vulture Palace saw her, they would desperately try to curry favor with her. At most he would just nod and greet them, or even ignore them. Vulture could not accept such a difference in treatment. She felt more and more unbalanced in her heart, due to her disappointment and jealousy. In fact, the contempt the people of the Vulture Palace had for her was not entirely because Wulingzi was no longer the master of the Vulture Palace. After all, Vulture was a celestial spiritualist and was very mysterious and powerful. Everyone looked down on her because of her relationship and marriage. In the beginning, her marriage with Wu Yuming was envied by almost everyone. Although the male disciples were a little jealous, Vulture's position in their hearts was higher. One had to know that Wu Yuming was the master of the Taekwondo League at that time. And after Wu Yuming and Yang Dingtian's duel, and were defeated, Vulture's position was not affected much because of the chaos times' consecutive month of reports. Although Wu Yuming had been defeated, his reputation were higher. Everyone knew that he was one of the young masters of the evil ways. Moreover, his defeat had nothing to do with his cultivation. His cultivation was still higher than Yang Dingtian's at that time. He remembered that after serializing Wu Yuming's story for a month, his female fans in the human country skyrocketed. Of all the things he should not have done, Vulture should not have left Wu Yuming so heartlessly after he was defeated. This caused her image to plummet instantly. How could a woman be so realistic? Wu Yuming was defeated and lost the Taekwondo League's master. And she wanted to divorce him? If that was all, it would have been fine. The most fatal thing to Vulture's reputation was her remarriage. After separating from Dongli, she actually remarried to the notorious Dongli. Moreover, she remarried without any status. She was only one of Dongli's concubines. Therefore, in everyone's eyes, she was no different from a broken shoe. In the Vulture Palace, her reputation was bad. There were even people in the Vulture Palace who were openly talking about her behind her back. According to her temperament, she would have killed all those people long ago. However, Wuxia was not allowed to give Wu Daozi any leverage. Vulture had already seen through Wuxia's cowardice and was thoroughly disappointed. However, this was the only support she had left. She had once placed her hopes on Dongli and did not hesitate to serve him. However, the perverted Dongli from before seemed to be a completely different person. Although he was still very perverted sometimes, most of the time, he barely spoke, as if he was a cold metal man. The little Princess Vulture suddenly felt as if she couldn't even call for help. Therefore, she placed all her hopes on Queen Hai Xian. After all, the Snakeman Empire's forces had entered the southern barbarian continent. Moreover, Queen Hai Xian's strength made Wuxia and Wu Daozi tremble. Queen Hai Xian summoned her and requested that Queen Hai Xian support Wuxia and give up supporting Wu Daozi. Faced with Vulture's request, Queen Hai Xian chuckled. Then, as if she was joking, she said, "All right, as long as you can pull Yang Dingtian onto my bed, I'll help you. How about it?" This was originally a joke, but Vulture treated it as a life-saving straw. Therefore, she proposed a deal to Yang Dingtian. Hearing her words, Yang Dingtian could not help but say, "Vulture, where is your dignity, your pride?" Hearing this statement, Ling Jiao shuddered while her beautiful face turned pale. She sneered and said, "Sire Yang Dingtian, when everything you have is being stepped on by someone else, and you are being tortured by a pervert, all your pride and dignity will vanish." Then, Vulture looked at Yang Dingtian. "I'm serious. As long as you help me take back everything I have, I'm willing to be your secret lover and let you play with me. I'm sure you've had some improper thoughts about me in the dead of night." Yang Dingtian stared at her and suddenly felt that even the Vulture from 2 years ago, although incomparably vicious and incomparably selfish, was more adorable than this. Suddenly, he saw that there seemed to be a strange pattern on her neck. Vulture suddenly pulled open her collar, revealing most of her snow-white upper body. Her snow-white body was densely covered with tattoos, all of which were tattoos of poisonous snake scales. Then she smiled cruelly and said, "There are more perverted ones, do you want to see?" "No, I don't want to see," Yang Dingtian said. Vulture lifted her clothes and turned around, only to see that at the cervical vertebrae of her neck, tiny and delicate golden fins pierced out of her snow-white skin. At a glance, it made her look devilishly sexy, and she looked more like a sea serpent. They were planted alive piece by piece, not in the flesh, but in the bones. Vulture said, "You feel sorry for me, right?" Vulture said, "If you feel sorry for me, then help me." Yang Dingtian stared at her and said slowly, "I can't help you." Then he Yaoli and Bola left. Yang Dingtian, you bastard, Vulture said. Do you want to watch me completely fall into the 18th level of hell? That Wulingzi deserves to die. Yaoli suddenly said. Yang Dingtian was silent and did not speak. Bola suddenly said, Sir Yang Dingtian, I feel a very terrifying aura from this woman's body. What aura? Yang Dingtian asked. It's as if an incomparably terrifying Viper King is struggling in the depths of hell and transforming. Once it succeeds, it might become an incomparably ferocious and terrifying flood dragon. Bola said. Yang Dingtian was stunned and said, Strange, why do you have such a feeling? She's clearly acting very foolishly now. Yaoli suddenly said, Yang Dingtian, Bolu has a certain understanding of face-to-face. Therefore in the dark domain, he can recognize you at a glance. Yang Dingtian said, She has the talent of a celestial spirit master, 1 in a billion. However, she's lazy, selfish and vicious. Currently, there's no room for a breakthrough in her cultivation. Bola said, From my point of view, she's in her most miserable state right now. You either kill her or take her in. Otherwise, I'm worried that the future will change. Yang Dingtian thought for a while and said, It's impossible to take her in. My wife and children are all kind and cute. Once I join her, my family will not be at peace. Then kill her. Bola said. I noticed that her eyes are gradually showing signs of blood pupils. Those with blood pupils will bring a huge disaster. Yang Dingtian nodded, and did not say anything else. The three of them rode the demon eagle and quickly flew back to Zhongjing. After returning to Zhongjing, Yang Dingtian directly held the highest meeting of the Council of Light. I propose to mobilize the Navy and Air Force to completely seal off the southern barbarian continent and annihilate any ships within 1,000 miles of the coast of the southern barbarian continent. I propose to send the Blazing Fire Legion to follow the fleet and be ready to take off at any time to annihilate all the air forces of the southern barbarian continent in sight. I propose that the medium and large missile troops all board the ships and be ready to carpet bomb all the ground of the southern barbarian continent. I propose that the southern barbarian continent Legion, Ingzhou Legion, and Zhongjing's 1st Legion, a total of 2 million ground troops, be ready to board the ships at any time. Once the southern barbarian continent is destroyed, immediately prepare to disembark. Moreover, all of this is in the name of eliminating the rebellion of the Vulture Palace and expelling the invaders of the southern barbarian continent. Yang Dingtian's words shocked everyone. Song Xiao was so excited that his hair almost stood up. Dongfang Minmi said, Sect Master, are we going to use force to take back the southern barbarian continent? Yang Dingtian said, No, this time we're mainly preparing to attack the forces of the Snakeman Empire in the southern barbarian continent. As for the southern barbarian continent, I hope we can take it back without using too much force. I really don't want the entire Black Vulture Legion to die under our Phoenix-level missiles. Qin Wancho said, Then what's your plan? Yang Dingtian said, 1 million troops, in the name of supporting Wulingzi and expelling the invaders, surround the southern barbarian continent. Although our army is ready at any time, and is very close to the southern barbarian continent, it will take at least 7 days to complete the encirclement. After 7 days, Wu Daozi and I will have a duel at the Heavenly Edict Academy. What? Dongfang Minmi was shocked. Yang Dingtian said, Master, don't worry. If it's Wulingzi, I wouldn't dare to say it. But if it's Wu Daozi, I'm almost certain I'll win. After defeating him, we'll expel him from the Vulture Palace. Whether Wulingzi acknowledges it or not, we'll put him back in his position. Then, our 1 million troops will only attack the Snakeman Empire's army and not the Vulture Palace. With Wulingzi's personality, he'll definitely be a coward and not offend either side. After destroying the Snakeman Empire's forces in the southern barbarian continent, our 1 million troops will directly land on the southern barbarian continent and truly take control of the southern barbarian continent's defense area. We'll also form a de facto encirclement of the Vulture Palace. Qin Wancho said, With Wulingzi's personality, he'll definitely be furious, but there's nothing he can do. Yes, he's a coward at heart. He's good at scheming but not decisive. He's timid and greedy for life. He can't be coaxed, he can only be beaten, Yang Dingtian said. After completing the encirclement of the Vulture Palace, we'll disintegrate and infiltrate from the inside. We'll strive to swallow the entire Black Vulture Legion, and in fact, complete the annexation of the Vulture Palace. Then Yang Dingtian said, of course, this is the most ideal situation. There might be many unforeseen events, and the biggest one is the Snakeman Empire's Queen Hai Exane. Once she interferes, the consequences will be severe. Therefore, we have to carry out a greater deterrent to the Snakeman Empire. Send out a large number of troops to the Dongli grassland and conduct a military drill. We'll act as if we're going to attack the Dongli grassland and support the Snakeman Empire's rebel army. Qin Wanchou said, In that case, perhaps the scale of the troops dispatched will be very, very, very large. Yang Dingtian said, Send out part of the Western Capital's army, the Northwest Continent's army, the Iron Furnace City's army, the Northland army, and the Cloud Sky City's army. Qin Wanchou clicked his tongue. This might exceed 8 million troops. Yang Dingtian said, Just treat it as a drill for the expedition to the Snakeman Empire. Without such a large force, we won't be able to intimidate the Snakeman Empire. And that's not enough. There are 2 other things we need to do. We need to make sure Queen Hai Exane understands that the Snakeman Empire is our true target. Dongfang Minmi said, What are those 2 things? Yang Dingtian said, First, the Palace of Skulls is currently being guarded by the Snakeman Empire's experts. I'll lead all of the unbounded martial grandmasters to wipe out the Snakeman Empire and take back the Palace of Skulls. After that, Master, Yu, Bolu, and Demon Li will enter the Snakeman Empire and wait for an opportunity to help the rebel army. We'll carry out large-scale assassinations and destruction in the Snakeman Empire cities. Dongfang Minmi was silent for a long moment. If we do that, we might really anger Queen Hai Exane. Yang Dingtian said, Yes, she might. But since she needs my help, she won't be able to completely turn on me. Sect Lord, Qin Wanchou said, You're taking a huge risk. But if we don't take any risks, we won't do anything. That's what I think we should do. And thus, the highest echelons of the Council of Light voted to launch a large-scale military operation against the Snakeman Empire in the South Barbarian continent. After the meeting was over, immediately, hundreds of Devil Vulture messengers flew out in all directions. A day later, the Tiando League's 10 million troops began to assemble, indicating that an unprecedented war was about to break out. Everyone was shocked. Chapter 878. Just as the Tiando League's army was gathering, Yang Dingtian led many masters to the Taboo continent to take back the gate of the human kingdom and completely block the passage from Little Western Paradise to the human kingdom. Riding on the fastest demon eagle, they arrived at the Taboo continent in just one day. Yang Dingtian saw the 4 sea serpents guarding the entrance almost immediately. Without a doubt, Yang Dingtian did not know any of the 4 sea serpents, but they were all near the level of infinite great masters. However, not only were there experts from the Sea Serpent clan guarding this place, there were also experts from the Netherworld Sea. There were 4 experts from the Netherworld Sea, including Tai Muli, the culprit who cut off Song Zhao's leg. In Yang Dingtian's plan, there was no plan to start a war with the Nether Ocean at the moment. That was because the Nether Ocean was actually the power of Little Western Paradise. Because the master of the Nether Ocean, Wu Yu, was the descendant of the Demon Fox tribe and the Speechless tribe, Yang Dingtian immediately stepped forward and said, Elder Tai Muli, I'm here to take over the gate of the human kingdom. Please allow me to do so. Before Tai Muli could say anything, the leading Naga female general suddenly opened her gorgeous mouth and spat out her terrifying snake tongue, making a terrifying roar at Yang Dingtian. Tai Muli looked at Yang Dingtian and said, Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, I believe you know the origin of my master. So this gate of the human kingdom belongs to the Nether Ocean, and no one is allowed to offend it. Yang Dingtian said, Then why is the Naga tribe here? Tai Muli said, "This is the relationship between my master and Queen Hyexan, and it's none of your business." Yang Dingtian suddenly narrowed his eyes. The alliance of the Nether Ocean, the Vulture Palace, and the Naga Empire was a huge disadvantage to him. Your master is from Little Western Paradise, and the Nether Ocean is in the human kingdom, so they should follow the rules of the human kingdom. Yang Dingtian said slowly, "This part of the taboo continent's sea is in the human world. Naturally, it should be managed by the Tiando League." Tai Muli rolled his eyes and said slowly, "Words are useless. Mr. Yang Dingtian, you can either do it or get lost. Of course, you have to remember that if you make a move, you will become the enemy of the Netherworld Sea, and even the Little Western Paradise." Tai Muli was right. It was useless to rely on words. However, should he make a move? If he made a move against Wu Yu, it would mean that he had completely fallen out with Wu Yu. Currently, did Yang Dingtian have the qualifications to fall out with Wu Yu? There was another crucial question. Was Wu Yu in the human kingdom, or was he still in the Little Western Paradise? What is it, Your Excellency Yang Dingtian? Have you thought it through? Do you want to scram, or do you want to fight? Tai Muli said. Yang Dingtian closed his eyes and thought for a while. Pa 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 pa, several demonic sky-splitting lightning bolts quickly hacked over. Before Tai Muli could finish his words, he was directly struck, and his whole body was completely charred black. Yang Dingtian's demonic sky-splitting lightning was the signal to attack. Immediately, Yao Li Bolu and Dongfang Minmi quickly took action. In an instant, the 8 experts guarding the entrance of the taboo continent were all killed. Of course, Yang Dingtian did not kill them, so the 8 experts did not die, but were only seriously injured. Tai Muli's body was charred black. He looked at Yang Dingtian and said coldly, "Kill me if you have the guts. You have offended my master. What will the consequences be? You will know soon enough." Yang Dingtian looked at him and said slowly, "That day, you cut off Song Zhao's leg and Zhu Hongshua's arm. Today, I will make you pay for it." After that, Yang Dingtian slashed down with his sword. Suddenly, Tai Muli's arm and leg were directly cut off. Tai Muli did not say a word. He gritted his teeth and stared at Yang Dingtian. The taboo continent sea area was taken down so easily. The next step was to send people to guard it. Originally, Bo Lu and Yao Li were guarding it, but now Yao Li might have another mission. Bo Lu should also go to the Dongli grassland. But now, Yang Dingtian felt that one of the two had to stay. Therefore, Yang Dingtian ordered Bo Lu, A Wen, A Wu, and Elder Ning Busi to stay and guard the entrance of the taboo continent sea area. Among these 4 experts, 3 of them were powerhouses close to rank 14. Elder Ning Busi was also an unbounded great grandmaster. Unless Queen Hyexan, Wu Yu Wu Daozi, and Wolingzi came in person, no one in the human countries could break through. Wu Daozi and Wolingzi would not come. It was not certain whether Wu Yu was in the Netherworld Sea. It was very likely that he was in the Little Western Paradise. Then, the only one who would come to fight for the entrance of the taboo continent sea area was Queen Hyexan. However, her motivation to fight for the Skull Hall was not very strong. She did not have much of a good impression of the Little Western Paradise. If nothing unexpected happened, the Queen of the Sea Hearts would come to see him before the next step of the plan. She would also come to see him immediately after knowing that Yang Dingtian had returned to Cloud Sky City. Yang Dingtian looked at Bo Lu and said, "I'll leave the entrance of the taboo continent sea area to you. But once powerhouses above the half-saint level rush over, do not fight them head-on. Immediately give up and protect yourself." "Yes," Bo Lu said. Then, Yang Dingtian led the experts back to Cloud Sky City. Yang Dingtian was right. Queen Hyexan had indeed come. Not only had she come, but she had also entered the valley. At this moment, she was holding her enchanting son, Yang Yi, who had the bloodline of a demigod. Moreover, her expression seemed to be very fond of him. "Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, you're back?" Queen Hyexan smiled and said, "Your son is really beautiful. I really want to carry him away and make him my son." Then Queen Hai Exine sweetly said to Yang Yi, "Good baby, come back to the Naga Empire with me and be my son, okay?" Yang Yi only smiled gently and did not answer. Yang Dingtian stood still and looked at Hai Xian's beautiful face. Hai Xian reluctantly returned Yang Yi to Yao Rao, and then said to Yang Dingtian, "Let's talk." "Okay." Yang Dingtian directly walked out. After Hai Xian left, Yao Rao immediately hugged Yang Yi tightly, and then gasped for breath. She covered her heart and felt waves of pain. When Hai Xian entered the valley, although no one showed it, she had really frightened everyone, because there was simply no one who could stop her. "I won't ask where you've been for the past 2 years, and I won't ask how your cultivation is," Queen Hai Xian said. "You've made such a big move. Are you going to officially attack my Naga Empire?" Yang Dingtian said, "You're thinking too much, it's just a normal drill. Of course, we have to know all the illegal ships that go to the human countries." Then Yang Dingtian said, "Oh right, I've also caught the 4 female Naga generals you left at the Taboo Continent Sea entrance. You can bring them back to the Naga Empire." Queen Hai Xian's beautiful face suddenly changed, and she said, "Yang Dingtian, are you determined to go against me?" Yang Dingtian said, "Your Majesty, I should be the one saying this. I know that I'm always preparing for the war of destruction, but I insist on allying with the evil ways and trying to destroy the human countries." Queen Hai Xian said slowly, "There's no other way. The Dongli grassland is too small to accommodate the Naga Empire, and it can't accommodate my ambitions." Then Queen Hai Xian said, "Yang Dingtian, but there's another way to solve my ambitions. That is, I won't invade the human countries as long as you're alive. You and I can give birth to a real Naga, and then in the future, not only can he inherit the Naga Empire, he can also inherit the entire human countries and become the master of the world. Isn't that the best ending?" Yang Dingtian said, "In that case, can you help me deal with the evil ways?" Queen Hai Xian was silent for a long time, then shook her head and said, "Sorry, that's impossible. After understanding the evil ways, after understanding the Demon King Wentian, I won't choose to be their enemy. At most, I'll be neutral and won't interfere in the war between you." Yang Dingtian smiled coldly and didn't reply. Queen Hai Xian suddenly said, "Yang Dingtian, do you still remember Shimin Ningning?" Yang Dingtian trembled and said, "What do you mean?" Queen Hai Xian said, "I know her secret and I even know where she is. If you agree to my request, then I can tell you where she is." Suddenly, Yang Dingtian's heart beat faster, and then he said coldly, "Who knows if you're telling the truth?" Queen Hai Xian said, "Actually, the Naga in this world hasn't completely disappeared. Your Shimin Ningning is a descendant of the Naga." Yang Dingtian was shocked. Of course, he wasn't shocked because Queen Hai Xian said this fact, but because this fact came from Queen Hai Xian's mouth. How did she know so much? Queen Hai Xian frowned slightly and said, "Strange, after hearing this secret, you don't seem to be very surprised." Then Queen Hai Xian said, "You should know clearly that once you find Shimin Ningning, you won't just get a lover or a wife. You'll get the help of a real Naga. At that time, your power will be like a tiger that has grown wings." Yang Dingtian said, "This is very contradictory. If there's a real Naga in this world, then the one who will suffer the greatest loss should be you. You should be very worried." The Queen of the Sea Heart smiled and said, "You don't know enough." Then Queen Hai Xian said, "I heard that in a few days, you'll be competing with Wu Dozi at the Heavenly Edict Academy? I'm very surprised. Why would you do this? Could it be that in these 2 years, you've had an incredible encounter? But since you've already decided to compete, then I might as well give you a few more days. I'll wait until your competition is over before I give you an answer. How about it?" Yang Dingtian nodded and said, "Okay." Then Queen Hai Xian floated away. After a few hours, the Council of Light made another announcement to the world. 5 days later, at the Heavenly Edict Academy, the leader of the Tiando League, the leader of the Council of Light, and Wu Daozi of the Vulture Palace would have a glorious battle. In an instant, it attracted the attention of the world. Chapter 879. Husband, the demon spirit you brought is very, very old. Wu Maji said. It can be made into 2 demon spirit mist robes and 2 demon spirit black armors. It's even better than the one you're wearing. Yang Dingtian asked, You're done? I'm done. Wu Maji pouted. Who are you going to give it to? Then she muttered. You gave your big grandma Shiman a gift, but the other sisters didn't. Don't think we don't know you're so biased. Yang Dingtian immediately stretched out his hand and pinched her. You aren't any smaller than her. Biased. Wu Maji grumbled. Yang Dingtian said helplessly. Next, I'm going to make a very magical ring. I'll give it to you first, okay? Really? Wu Maji asked. Really? Yang Dingtian. Wu Maji revealed a charming smile and stuck out her tongue to lick Yang Dingtian's lips. At least you have a conscience. Then, she took out the demon spirit mist robe and demon spirit black armor. Take it, use it to please other women. Then Wu Maji said seriously, Husband, this demon spirit black armor is much better than what you're wearing. It can resist and neutralize a lot of damage. Why don't you change it? Yang Dingtian. This demon spirit mist robe and demon spirit black armor are for Yaoli to carry out dangerous missions in the Naga Empire. The safer they are, the better. Wu Maji said. She's a bit like Song Chunhua. She's already loyal to you, so don't get involved with her. You'll just give us another competitor. Yang Dingtian was completely speechless. Wu Maji was like this. Song Chunhua, who followed Yang Dingtian because of her ideals, was quite cold to her. She wouldn't make friends with her, and wouldn't try to coax her into her room. Only a woman like Dishi Bian who didn't care about anything, like Dishi Bian, could be her helper. So she tried every means to trick Dishi Bian into Yang Dingtian's bed. Speaking of which, this seductive woman was truly snobbish. Yang Dingtian went to send Yaoli off. He headed to the Dongli grasslands to carry out a secret mission. Of course, the so-called secret mission was basically to help the resistance army of the Naga Empire escape and find Huang Yu, the confidant of the former Queen Hai Exan, who was exiled by Queen Poisa. At the end of the day, it was to restrain Queen Hai Exan and prevent her from focusing on the southern barbarian continent. Remember, if you meet someone with a similar cultivation base as you, don't accept the challenge. Safety first, Yang Dingtian said. Yaoli nodded and said, Yes, I got it. With the demon spirit mist cloak and demon spirit black armor, unless Queen Hai Exan comes personally, no one in the Naga Empire can stop me. Yang Dingtian nodded and said, Then I'll have to trouble you. Yaoli didn't say anything else. Instead, she rode on a demon eagle and flew towards the Dongli grasslands. Following the orders of the Council of Light, the war machines of the entire human countries started to move quickly. In just 2 days, the South Central Continent Army and the Incontinent Army had finished gathering and were heading towards the southern barbarian continent. Moreover, they were all crystal ships, Dongli clippers. There were more than 1,000 ships of various sizes. The first and second armies of Zhongjing had also finished gathering and were heading towards the south. With all the military forces added together, there were close to 2 million soldiers. They were like a giant beast that was about to surround the entire southern barbarian continent. The southern barbarian continent's gathering speed was relatively faster, but the western continent's gathering speed was much slower. This was because they had mobilized troops from 4 or 5 defense regions. Although they weren't gathering in one place, the total number of soldiers involved was as high as 8 million. The few armies were separated by tens of thousands of miles. It was a huge military operation. From gathering to setting off, it took a long time. Even so, Queen Hai Exan didn't seem to be affected at all. She did something that Yang Dingtian didn't want to see the most. She swaggered towards the southern barbarian continent. The new owner of the Vulture Palace, Wu Daozi, came to welcome Queen Hai Exan with the greatest pomp and circumstance. Furthermore, in the southern barbarian continent's queen's new city, they publicly signed a lease agreement to lease more than 3,000 miles of the southern barbarian continent to the Naga Empire. If this happened on Earth, there was no doubt that this lease agreement would be despised. This was because it meant the loss of one's country and humiliation. However, most people in the Vulture Palace didn't have this concept. They had always regarded the southern barbarian continent as their territory. However, this area was filled with savages and savage beasts. It was very difficult for the people in the Vulture Palace to feel that this was sacred and inviolable territory. Of course, most of the members of the Spirit Vulture Palace were uncomfortable with the Serpentine Empire interfering in their sphere of influence. However, the Vulture Palace's bloodthirst had long been wiped clean by Wuxia. They didn't have much of a reaction to this agreement. In the Queen's new city, Wu Daozi had belittled Yang Dingtian to the point that he was worthless. He had described the Heaven Dao Union's army of 2 million that was constantly approaching as a bunch of clay chickens and pottery dogs, and didn't even place them in his eyes. Furthermore, he publicly announced to the people of the Naga Empire and the Vulture Palace that Yang Dingtian would definitely die in the martial arts competition a few days later. At this moment, Yang Dingtian was completely crazy before his death. He could be regarded as a corpse in the grave. Your Excellency Wu Daozi, you should still be careful. Yang Dingtian never lies. Since he agreed to have a martial arts competition with you, it means that he is confident, Queen Hai Xian said. Therefore, you should still prepare a foolproof plan, especially for Wuxia. Your Majesty worries too much. Wu Daozi took a sip of wine and said, I only have one question. Your Majesty, have you heard of anyone who can break through from a 9-star 9th grade Grandmaster to a half-saint in just over 2 years? Queen Hai Xian shook her head and said, No, not even in 20 years. Then that's it. Wu Daozi said, Moreover, my cultivation has greatly improved in the past 2 years. Under the guidance of Princess Mudan, I have also spent a long time cultivating in the illusion of the taboo continent. Yang Dingtian is blind to challenge me to a martial arts competition. He is completely seeking his own death. Queen Hai Xian frowned slightly. In fact, this Wu Daozi was not a good ally. His arrogance were difficult for even Queen Hai Xian to tolerate. In comparison, Wuxia was greedy for life and afraid of death. Although he was fierce on the outside but weak on the inside, he was easier to grasp. This Wu Daozi in front of her was a man of his word, and had a very unyielding personality. If it were not for the fact that she needed him to suppress Yang Dingtian, and that the evil ways behind this person were too powerful, Queen Hai Xian would still be very disgusted with this person. Therefore, she endured and said patiently, Your Excellency Wu Daozi, Wu Yuming was also full of confidence that day, but in the end she was defeated. Suddenly, Wu Daozi's expression changed, and he said, Your Majesty, do you think that I will repeat the mistakes of that useless Wu Yuming? Queen Hai Xian said, I just want you to be careful and not underestimate Yang Dingtian. Wu Daozi sneered and said, Wu Yuming's defeat was entirely his own fault. At that time, he was already an infinite great grandmaster, and his cultivation was more than 100 times more than Yang Dingtian's. In the end, he insisted on pursuing a magnificent effect, and used the so-called darkness profound flame. In the end, it was devoured by some energy in Yang Dingtian's body. And coincidentally, some energy in Yang Dingtian's body could only devour the darkness profound flame, and nothing else. If he had used any other method, even the stupidest method, Yang Dingtian would have become a pile of rotting bones by now. How foolish! Queen Hai Xian was completely speechless. Her patience was limited. She did not like Wu Daozi from the beginning, and seeing him so insolent, she felt even more uncomfortable. Therefore, after exchanging a few more pleasantries, Wu Daozi returned to the Vulture Palace. However, in order to avoid being taken advantage of by Yang Dingtian, Queen Hai Xian still stayed in the Queen's new city, in the southern barbarian continent. Half of the reason she stayed here was to protect the Snakeman Empire's base here, and the other half was to protect the Vulture Palace. As long as she stayed here, Yang Dingtian's army would not dare to do anything. As for the 8 million troops gathered in the western continent, Queen Hai Xian thought that it was a trick to divert the east and attack the west. Grandpa, please don't fight with Yang Dingtian, okay? Spirit Rabbit said. In fact, let's not be the master of the Vulture Palace anymore. Let's go to an extremely remote place, where we don't know anyone. It'll just be the two of us living together. And I'll cook for you every day. Isn't that good? Wu Daozi's eyes were full of tenderness, but his voice was very cold. My dear granddaughter, as you can see, it's not me who is looking for trouble. It's Yang Dingtian, who is seeking his own death. Spirit Rabbit said. If you didn't ally with the Snakeman Empire and oppose the Tiando League, he wouldn't have become your enemy. Wu Daozi said angrily. You are my granddaughter, the future successor of the Vulture Palace. Are you going to stand on Yang Dingtian's side? Is Grandpa's position lower than Yang Dingtian's in your heart? No, granddaughter is not standing on Yang Dingtian's side, but on the Tiando League's side. I'm standing on the side of justice, Spirit Rabbit said. Wu Daozi was still angry. Let me ask you, in your heart, is Grandpa more important, or is Yang Dingtian more important? Of course Grandpa is more important. Grandpa is my only family, and Yang Dingtian is just a man I admire a little. Spirit Rabbit said. He's a clown. Why do you admire him? He's a clown who overestimates himself. Wu Daozi said sternly. From now on, you are not allowed to mention his name, and you are not allowed to see him. Spirit Rabbit said with tears in her beautiful eyes. Okay, Grandpa, I won't see him. So let's find a place where there is no one, and live there for the rest of our lives. And don't get involved in their battle between good and evil. Isn't that good? Impossible, Wu Daozi said coldly. It wasn't easy for me to get back what belongs to me. How can I give it up like this? I lost decades of my life and lived in hell. Since God has let me stand between heaven and earth again, how can I be so lonely and unknown? I want the whole world to know my name, Wu Daozi. I want the Vulture Palace to stand at the top of the world. I want the whole central continent to be your playground in the future. I'd rather die than give up everything and live in seclusion. Spirit Rabbit looked at Wu Daozi's fanatical face, and after a long time, she said sadly, Grandpa, you don't love me as a person anymore. It's because you want to monopolize me. The only thing you care about is your ambition. Nonsense, Wu Daozi said sternly. Do you also want to become a stupid woman? After a few years in the Heavenly Enlightenment Academy, your brain was washed away. The Spirit Rabbit said, in the most dangerous and difficult times before, you were still concerned about whether I was happy or not. But now, you just want to imprison me in your cage. You don't care whether I'm happy or not. What nonsense are you talking about? Isn't everything I do for you? I want to expand the foundation of the Vulture Palace tenfold, 100-fold. Isn't it to pass on to you? Wu Daozi was furious. You're only doing this for yourself. And you clearly know that because of the evil spirit energy, plus that evil secret technique of yours, you'll live well even after I die, the Spirit Rabbit said. So no matter what you do, don't use my name. Shut up. Wu Daozi was furious and slapped her in the face. However, when he slapped her, he regretted it, and the strength was greatly reduced. But he still slapped Spirit Rabbit's delicate and beautiful face. Suddenly, half of her delicate face became red and swollen, and blood flowed out of the corner of her mouth. Then, the room fell into a dead silence. Spirit Rabbit didn't cry, nor did she say anything like "you hit me." She just gently rubbed her face, and then lowered her head in silence. Wu Daozi's face twitched and his hands trembled. You'd better reflect on yourself here. And after Yang Dingtian dies, you'll probably wake up. With that, Wu Daozi snorted and turned to leave. Just like that, time passed day by day. The Tiando League's 2 million army had basically surrounded the southern barbarian continent. Then the two armies were in a standoff. However, Queen Hai Xian was still guarding the southern barbarian continent's queen's new city. As long as she was there, the Tiando League's army couldn't attack and destroy the Snakeman Empire's army and cities in the southern barbarian continent, let alone land on the southern barbarian continent. If this situation continued, even if Yang Dingtian defeated Wu Daozi in the martial contest, it would be useless as long as Wu Daozi was eliminated. Queen Hai Xian would immediately find Wolingzi and continue the previous alliance and cooperation. Then, Yang Dingtian's plan to completely take over the Vulture Palace would be completely ruined. At this time, Yao Li had already contacted the resistance army and had begun to rescue Queen Poise's confidants. She had even begun to assassinate the higher-ups of the Snakeman Empire. Through the fastest energy flying object, Queen Hai Xian received important information about the Snakeman Empire, but she remained unmoved. Until one day, the Snakeman Empire sent a message that made Queen Hai Xian unable to sit still. Queen Poise's body has been stolen and disappeared. Instantly, Queen Hai Xian was shocked. Then, she no longer cared about the southern barbarian continent and the Vulture Palace, and immediately returned to the Snakeman Empire as quickly as possible. Queen Poise's body had been stolen. This meant that someone wanted to dig out Queen Hai Xian's heart and lungs and destroy her foundation. Queen Hai Xian finally left, and Yang Dingtian's strategy could finally continue. Soon, the 2 million army had completely surrounded the eastern part of the southern barbarian continent. And the day of Yang Dingtian and Wu Daozi's martial arts competition was quickly approaching. Everyone's attention was on the Apocalypse Academy. Chapter 880. Stealing Queen Poise's body was personally done by Yang Dingtian. Because Queen Poise's body was in the core energy formation of the Naga Empire's pyramid, even a half-step saint would be instantly killed by this energy array. For the sake of this energy formation, the Sea Heart Queen had used countless crystals, darkness crystals, and who knows how many thousand-year-old demon cores to form this incomparably powerful energy formation. And the key to this energy formation was always with Queen Hai Xian. It could be said that no one in this world could pass through this energy formation and steal Queen Poise's body. Of course, Yang Dingtian was an exception because he could create a spatial door and directly pass through the energy formation. Yao Li had already caused chaos in the Naga Empire, but Queen Hai Xian was still overseeing the southern barbarian continent unmoving. Seeing that the date of the duel was getting closer and closer, Queen Hai Xian didn't have any intention to leave the southern barbarian continent. Therefore, Yang Dingtian had no choice but to use this plan and touch the thing that Queen Hai Xian was most afraid of and cared about the most. As expected, after hearing this news, Queen Hai Xian first felt that it was impossible. It was absolutely impossible. No one could pass through that energy formation. Then her heart jumped. Someone wanted to dig out her roots and overturn her Naga Empire. So, how could she care about the southern barbarian continent? She flew to the Naga Empire as fast as she could. The news that Yang Dingtian was going to duel with Wu Daozi at the Heavenly Edict Academy instantly spread throughout the world. Now the Council of Light had almost controlled all of the human countries, so it could be said that this duel was definitely the focus of the world. More than 2 years ago, Wu Daozi had come to the Heavenly Edict Academy to provoke, defeated all the experts, and trampled on the dignity of the Heavenly Edict Academy. At that time, Yang Dingtian had said that he would get back the dignity that had been trampled on, so the students of the Heavenly Edict Academy didn't have to be dejected. Therefore, even though there were still a few days before the start of the tournament, all the students of the Heavenly Edict Academy were already boiling with excitement. Even the entire Shijing was in a state of frenzy. Apart from Yang Dingtian's family, his comrades, and the students of the Heavenly Edict Academy, the ones who were most concerned about this tournament were none other than Yang Dingtian's family, comrades, and the students of the Heavenly Edict Academy. Without a doubt, it was Wulingzi and Vulture. Even though Wulingzi had told Yang Dingtian not to interfere with the Vulture Palace, he had given up the position of the Lord of the Vulture Palace willingly. But in the depths of his heart, he really wanted Daozi to die. He also heard that the reason Yang Dingtian and Wu Daozi had a martial arts competition was to bring order to the chaos and eliminate the rebels. Although this was Yang Dingtian's bad intentions, Wulingzi's heart still moved. Of course, all the excitement and anticipation only lasted for a moment. Because in Wulingzi's heart, it was impossible for Yang Dingtian to win, and it was also impossible for him to die. No matter what, Yang Dingtian, that little thief, offended us too much, so it's good that he's dead. Wulingzi said. Vulture said. Is there a possibility that Yang Dingtian will win? Just like the duel with Wu Yuming? Everyone didn't think Yang Dingtian would win, but he still won? Wulingzi glanced at Vulture and said. Do you think it's possible? That day, when Yang Dingtian and Wu Yuming dueled, the difference in cultivation between them was like heaven and earth. It was only because Wu Yuming foolishly used the dark profound flame that she lost. Do you think that Wu Daozi will give Yang Dingtian a chance? Do you think that Yang Dingtian's dark profound flame can do anything to Wu Daozi? Vulture thought for a while and shook his head. No. Then Vulture said. But if Yang Dingtian knows that he's not a match, why did he accept the challenge? Wulingzi said. Because he promised the Heavenly Edict Academy that he would defeat Wu Daozi and regain the Heavenly Edict Academy's dignity. Moreover, it's more of a trick to drive a wedge between me and Wu Daozi. He used millions of troops to surround the southern barbarian continent and fought with Wu Daozi. He's trying to force me to take a side and create an established fact. It's best if I directly start a coup in the Vulture Palace and take back the position of the Lord of the Vulture Palace. Then Wulingzi sneered. Does he think I'm stupid? That I'll be so easily intimidated by him and board his broken ship that's doomed to silence? I've thought about it very clearly. How long can Wu Daozi live? At most 30 or 50 years. When he dies, the Vulture Palace will still be able to stop me. Even that little girl, Ling Tuer, will be able to sit firmly on the position of the Vulture Palace Lord. So when the time comes, the Vulture Palace will still be mine. Vulture looked faintly at Wulingzi and said, You can endure humiliation for 50 years, but what about me? Wulingzi said, I can endure, why can't you? Remember, evil ways are no longer the evil ways of the past. They already have the power to overturn the heavens. If a mere Yang Dingtian wants to stop them, it'll be like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Vulture was silent for a moment and said, That day, I asked him to help me, but he didn't agree. Why did he fight with Wu Daozi later? Wulingzi's eyes turned cold. He said coldly, You think he did it for you? Don't think too highly of yourself. At this time in his eyes, you're even worse than a prostitute. You only have one path, and that is to serve young Master Dongli well. Only then will your luck turn for the better in the future. Just wait, just wait. Tomorrow, you'll get the news of Yang Dingtian's defeat. Then, the terrifying army of millions in the Tiando League will retreat with their tails between their legs. Yang Dingtian, this clown, wants me to fall into his trap? He's dreaming. Vulture's beautiful face twitched slightly, but she didn't say anything else. At this time, the entire Shijing was packed with people. Although Yang Dingtian said that he would definitely win, the Council of Light still made the most thorough preparations. All the first-line and second-line legions of the Council of Light stopped resting and entered a state of battle readiness. As long as they gave the order, they could easily suppress any rebellion or move to any place. The whole of Shijing had been turned into a huge military camp. Millions of soldiers had entered, completely preventing any possibility of causing any trouble. In the hearts of all the higher-ups of the Council of Light, regardless of whether Yang Dingtian would win or not, he definitely wouldn't die. Even if he lost, it wasn't a big deal in the eyes of the higher-ups of the Council of Light. At most, the southern barbarian continent's strategy would fail temporarily and be delayed. Moreover, Yang Dingtian didn't become the leader of the Tiando League through martial arts. But just in case, they still made all the necessary preparations. At this special time, those vassals who had been defeated, as well as the secret forces of the Sky Demon City, the Naga Empire, and Vulture Palace in the Tiando League, all had to be careful. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. If they moved slightly, it would be a disaster. At this time, the Council of Light would rather kill the wrong person than let them go. It could be said that if Yang Dingtian were to win, it would be fine. But if he were to lose, those people and factions that had a criminal record would be done for. They would basically be dead for sure. Because if Yang Dingtian lost, the entire Tiando League would enter a state of high alert. Then no matter what, a medium-sized war would definitely be fought. They had to divert everyone's attention from the martial arts competition and regain morale in other places. Therefore, at this time, even Sky Demon City and the soldiers on the city walls were all pulled down. They even directly closed the city gates, afraid that any action would cause the Tiando League to misunderstand. Vulture Palace. Wu Daozi had entered Shijing. This news instantly blew up in the entire Shijing. Everyone's hearts were suddenly in their mouths. It could not be helped. Wu Daozi was too ostentatious. He led a few hundred black vultures in a sharp knife formation and directly entered Shijing. Countless pairs of eyes saw him. Moreover, there were thousands of Tiando League's air forces surrounding him as he entered Shijing. Yang Dingtian entered Shijing in a rather low-key manner. He rode a black vulture to the south alone and entered Shijing's Tianqi Academy. The Tianqi Academy did not even have a holiday that day. They still attended classes and practiced as usual. Less than a quarter of the higher-ups of the Council of Light were present. The rest were guarding the various places. The martial arts competition would be held at noon. At this time, there was still about 2 hours before noon. Yang Ningning specially applied for leave to accompany Yang Dingtian. Dad, I am now a 5-star black martial master. I am the strongest person under the age of 15 in the Tianqi Academy. Yang Ningning said proudly. That's amazing. Yang Dingtian said. But even if you are a 5-star black martial master, you shouldn't talk back to your mother. She only knows how to complain. Little Ningning pursed her lips and said. She only knows how to be a well-behaved young lady every day. It would be best if I could be like Aunt Yin Yin and be just passable in martial arts. Don't fight and kill. Just wait to marry a good husband. This kind of thinking is too useless. Yang Dingtian said. Then what do you think is useful? Little Ningning thought for a while and said, Aunt Song Lihua and Aunt Song Chunhua are quite useful. Of course, they are not good enough. At least, they should be like Dongfang Bingling. Yang Dingtian was instantly speechless. His daughter's heart was truly extraordinarily big. Yang Dingtian said, But when you grow up and become powerful, maybe the world will be peaceful. Little Ningning said, Dad, don't worry. The world will never be peaceful. Even if we win the Doomsday War, who knows how much trouble there will be. Moreover, when the time comes, you can't have to draw your sword and charge into battle for everything. As your daughter, I should fight for you. Also Yang Li, Yang Yi, Yang Yichen, and little Acho will be left to us in the future. Then little Ningning thought for a while and said, Forget it. Little Acho will definitely be a playboy in the future. We can't count on him. Yang Dingtian really felt like his children had grown up. He patted her head and said, That's great. Then I'll wait to enjoy your blessings. Of course. Yang Ningning said. Then, Yang Ningning finally couldn't help but whisper, Dad, that Wu Daozi is a half-saint. Can you win? This was everyone's worry. Could Yang Dingtian win? Yang Dingtian looked at Yang Ningning seriously and said, Girl, over the years, I've been through countless martial arts competitions and duels. Almost every time, it looked like I was bound to lose. I was weaker than the others. Every time, I didn't have any confidence to win. But this time is an exception. This time I'll definitely win. Immediately, Yang Ningning was completely relieved. She happily hugged Yang Dingtian's arm and continued to chatter. However, they were no longer talking about big matters. Basically, they were talking about small matters. For example, she was already a tyrant under the age of 15 in the Heavenly Edict Academy. She already had many underlings under her. Moreover, she had never publicly said that she was Yang Dingtian's daughter. Yang Dingtian looked at her delicate little face, and then stood up to measure her height. Yang Ningning immediately stood in front of Yang Dingtian excitedly, and even tried to stand on tiptoe. The little girl had grown up. She was almost as tall as Yang Dingtian's nose. On Earth, she should be about 1.6 meters tall. Immediately, Yang Dingtian couldn't help but ask, Girl, are there any boys in the academy who like you? Talking about this topic, little Ningning wasn't shy at all. She said, At first there were many. They were all 15 or 16-year-old brats. Each and every one of them thought that they were extraordinary and were extremely childish. After that, no one dared to like me? Yang Dingtian was speechless. You're only 13 years old, yet you call others brats. He smiled and asked, why don't others dare to like you? Did you hit them? Of course not. Yang Ningning said. After I became the boss of hundreds of students, they were ashamed of themselves and didn't dare to like me. Yang Dingtian immediately smiled. Under this kind of happiness, time flew by. Yang Dingtian had never stayed with little Ningning for so long. It really made her excited. For 2 to 4 hours, she was like a little bird chattering nonstop. Until a voice came from outside. Sect Master, it's time for the competition. Yang Dingtian got up and walked outside. As he walked, he said, Girl, do you want to go out with me or wait for Daddy here? Ningning's little face paled. Although she had always been bold, she really didn't dare to watch. However, waiting here quietly made him even more anxious and fearful. I'd better go out and watch. Little Ningning said. Anyway, Daddy, you said that you would definitely win. Yang Dingtian nodded solemnly and said, Yes, I will definitely win. There was already a sea of people around the Heavenly Edict Academy's martial arts arena. Some of the higher-ups of the Council of Light, and all the students of the Heavenly Edict Academy, had taken a break to watch the competition between Yang Dingtian and Wu Daozi. Yang Dingtian had just walked onto the martial arts arena when countless gazes instantly focused on him. They were filled with anticipation and endless admiration. At this moment, Yang Dingtian was the hope of everyone present. Although it didn't matter if he lost, for the young students present, if Yang Dingtian lost, it would be a devastating blow to their morale. On the other side, Wu Daozi also slowly entered the arena. In the entire martial arts arena, the two of them were separated by 30 meters, quietly facing each other. Do you know how long I've been cultivating inside? Even if you've broken through to the half-saint realm, it's still a dead end. Then, Wu Daozi shook lightly, and the powder of the scabbard on the sword suddenly flew away, revealing the incomparably sharp blade. Now you'll take my sword, Wu Daozi said coldly. Then he gathered all his profound qi and slashed down at Yang Dingtian. Swish! Suddenly, this sword light seemed to pierce the sky, completely covering the light of the two suns. Yang Dingtian suddenly used the demon spirit demon fire energy shield, completely enveloping himself in an instant. Boom! Wu Daozi's shocking sword light slashed on Yang Dingtian's body. With a loud noise, a shocking light suddenly burst out. In an instant, the demon spirit demon fire energy shield on Yang Dingtian's body suddenly shattered and turned into ashes. The remaining profound qi energy suddenly entered Yang Dingtian's body. Yang Dingtian only felt his body shake violently, and then he spat out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, the entire huge martial arts arena was smashed to pieces. This Wu Daozi had a full cultivation of rank 16 and above. He was no longer a half-saint. But so what? It was only rank 16. It was impossible to kill Yang Dingtian. Even defeating him was an extravagant hope. Yang Dingtian looked at the dueling platform that had turned into powder, and said slowly, Your Excellency Wu Daozi, this place is too small. How about we go to the sky and fight to our heart's content? Wu Daozi said, Fine, so as not to affect your shrimp soldiers and crab generals. Then, the two people suddenly turned into two streams of light, and flew directly to the sky above tens of thousands of meters. Boom 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 boom. In the air, the two people slashed crazily and intertwined crazily. Suddenly, a series of loud noises came from the sky. It was as if the entire sky was completely torn apart, and the two suns were completely invisible. When it came to top experts, it was more of a naked exchange of blows, a collision of profound qi. In an instant, the two people exchanged hundreds of moves. Although each move was earth-shattering, tearing the sky, neither side could do anything to the other. Boom! After the last sword light was cut, the two people stopped the meaningless sword light slashing. Tens of thousands of meters apart in the air, they continued to confront each other. Then, Yang Dingtian's body was like a cannonball, suddenly bombarding toward Wu Daozi. And Wu Daozi also turned into a stream of light, and fiercely rushed over. This kind of duel was very similar to Queen Lan Qi and Bui Cao in New Naga. The two people were completely like comets hitting the earth, with incomparably astonishing speed and incomparably astonishing light, slamming together. Boom! There was a loud noise that shook the sky. At the place where the two people collided, all the trees on the nearest mountain peak were instantly shattered. The originally lush green mountaintop was suddenly emptied and turned into a patch of gray. The light of the two people's collision almost became another sun. Everyone suddenly looked at the sky desperately in horror, fearing to see Yang Dingtian fall, or even be smashed to pieces. The light gradually dissipated. Both of them were safe and sound, even if it was a pure energy collision. Even if Yang Dingtian did not have any dark spirit black armor, he was completely safe and sound. That's right, Wu Daozi was the 16th level, but so what? Yang Dingtian's Xian veins and Qi Si had been transformed by the Naga royalty Xian veins. Yang Dingtian had a powerful dark Xian fire that could devour excess energy, and there was no need for the dark dragon to come out. After the collision, the distance between the two people was less than a foot. The sword light could not be slashed, nor could the energy collision. Yang Dingtian immediately brandished his sword and slashed wildly at Wu Daozi. Dang 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 dang. After who knows how many years, Yang Dingtian once again surged with the pig-killing swordsmanship. But at this time, when he used the pig-killing swordsmanship, he was no longer as stupid as before. Because the speed was already extremely fast, slashing out countless swords every second. The naked eye was not interested at all. Only a mass of light and shadow could be seen. In an instant, Yang Dingtian slashed out countless swords. In terms of swordsmanship, Yang Dingtian was number 1 in the world. However, Wu Daozi's cultivation was slightly better, so his speed was also slightly better. Thus, in a close combat, the two were still unable to do anything to each other. Dang! Only a crisp sound was heard. Suddenly, the sword in Wu Daozi's hand flew out in half. His treasure sword was cut in half by Yang Dingtian. Although his treasure sword was also a rare treasure, the blood-black gold sword, compared to Yang Dingtian's near-emperor-grade soul sword, it was still a little inferior. After slashing countless swords, it finally couldn't bear it and directly shattered. Taking advantage of this short period of time, Yang Dingtian's sword was like lightning, and every move was fatal, slashing towards Wu Daozi's body. Puff 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 puff. Suddenly blood splattered everywhere. Wu Daozi's body was slashed dozens of times by Yang Dingtian, and blood spurted out wildly. Swoosh! Wu Daozi suddenly exploded with profound qi, and his entire body quickly burst back a few thousand meters. Looking down at the blood all over his body and countless deep wounds, he suddenly raised his head. Suddenly, a green light flashed, and the wounds all over his body instantly disappeared. His body that was riddled with scars suddenly recovered as before. It's just relying on the sharpness of the treasure sword. What kind of ability is that? Wu Daozi sneered. Yang Dingtian, Senior Wu Daozi, if not for the evil spirit energy, you would have been torn into pieces by now. So what? Wu Daozi sneered. Gently wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Wu Daozi said to Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian, your combat strength is far beyond my imagination. You are really worthy of being the number 1 person in the Taekwondo League. But unfortunately, you met a possessor of evil spirit energy. You are still a dead end. Ah! Then Wu Daozi suddenly roared. In an instant, his entire body suddenly exploded, turning into more than a dozen doppelgangers. That's right, there were more than a dozen Wu Daozi. And they suddenly formed a formation and directly surrounded Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian had seen this move before. At that time, when Zhu Qingzhu was fighting against a group of heroes, he had once used this move, but his doppelgangers were far less than Wu Daozi in front of him. Whoosh 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 whoosh. More than a dozen Wu Daozi doppelgangers frantically swept towards Yang Dingtian. Of these dozen doppelgangers, only one was his real body, and the rest were formed by evil spirit energy, completely unable to harm him. Moreover, although the evil spirit doppelgangers were doppelgangers, They still had the power to attack, and it was a pure spiritual attack. Whoosh 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 whoosh. More than a dozen Wu Daozi, more than a dozen broken swords, madly attacked Yang Dingtian, and it was impossible to know which one was real and which one was fake. Yang Dingtian alone was completely unable to avoid the attacks of more than a dozen Wu Daozi. Immediately, Yang Dingtian was hit more than a dozen times. Although it was all the energy attacks of the evil spirit doppelgangers, it still made his profound veins tremble, and blood spurted out. The real Wu Daozi was hiding among these dozen doppelgangers, waiting to give Yang Dingtian a fatal blow. Once hit, it would be absolutely fatal. Therefore, Yang Dingtian absolutely could not be passive, because it was simply impossible to guard against. Suddenly gritting his teeth, the sharp sword in Yang Dingtian's hand slashed fiercely. Clap 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 clap. An incomparably huge devil sky-splitting lightning struck down incomparably ferociously. In an instant, an incomparably huge bolt of lightning suddenly streaked across the daytime sky, crazily bombarding the bodies of more than a dozen Wu Daozi. One had to know, the evil spirit doppelgangers were completely unafraid of the devil sky-splitting lightning. But Wu Daozi's real body found it very difficult to resist it. But the cunning Wu Daozi made all the doppelgangers have the same reaction, trembling violently in the air. Hurting the doppelgangers was useless, they had to attack the real body. The evil spirit doppelgangers were completely invincible, completely impervious to any harm. But now, using the devil sky-splitting lightning, Yang Dingtian was also unable to distinguish which was the real body, and which was the doppelganger. At this time, an incomparably strange scene appeared in the sky. More than a dozen Wu Daozi were currently trembling desperately, all floating in the air motionless. This was the real Wu Daozi recovering. Once it completed recovering, it would launch a fatal blow at Yang Dingtian. Must find the real body. Yang Dingtian suddenly released the million spirit demon fire's resentful spirits, instantly enveloping the entire sky. Let countless resentful spirits go in search, which one was the real Wu Daozi. But countless resentful spirits all fluctuated together, intensely fluctuating. Regardless of whether it was the real Wu Daozi or the doppelgangers, countless resentful spirits all had the same reaction. Still unable to distinguish, Yang Dingtian fiercely gritted his teeth and suddenly used his trump card. Swoosh! The demonic spirit that lost its limbs suddenly flew out of the spatial ring, pouncing out like lightning. This was a rank 19 demonic spirit, Yang Dingtian's pet. Could it find the real body? Yang Dingtian didn't know, because the attraction of the evil spirit energy to him was completely fatal, so it was very likely that it would pounce on the evil spirit doppelganger. However, the source of the evil spirit energy was within the main body, so it was very likely that it would pounce on the real body. Swoosh! The rank 19 demonic spirit suddenly pounced on one of the Wu Daozi, and that Wu Daozi immediately had a horrified look in his eyes. It's you, Wu Daozi, you're finished. Yang Dingtian sneered, and the devil sky-splitting lightning hacked down crazily at him. Because he had to support more than a dozen doppelgangers, the cultivation of Wu Daozi's real body was greatly reduced, and he couldn't withstand Yang Dingtian's full-strength devil sky-splitting lightning. Chapter 882. Yang Dingtian was still a step too slow when the incomparably shocking devil sky-splitting lightning struck Wu Daozi's head. All of his clones had already disappeared, and all of the evil spirit energy had returned to his body. Pa! The huge lightning struck Wu Daozi. With a flash of blue light, his entire body was quickly charred black, and then restored to its original state even faster. Because the moment his true body was recognized, he had already recalled his evil spirit clones. At this time, the devil sky-splitting lightning could no longer hurt him at all. Wu Daozi looked at the rank 19 devil spirit lying on his body in surprise, revealing an incomparably horrified expression, and said in a trembling voice, Yang Dingtian, you're really amazing. You can actually keep a devil spirit of nearly 10,000 years as a pet. But so what? It's just a small trick. What can you do to me? Then, the two people quietly confronted each other again. Both sides had exhausted all means, but neither could do anything to the other. Yang Dingtian stared at Wu Daozi angrily. Damn this evil spirit energy. It was actually so difficult to deal with. If not for this second-class evil spirit energy, even if Wu Daozi was rank 16, he would have died under his sword. Wu Daozi looked at Yang Dingtian and sneered. What other means do you have? Just use it. Yang Dingtian gritted his teeth and began to release the mystic fire. Whoosh! Million spirit demon fire. Whoosh! Devil spirit demon fire. Whoosh! Void-splitting fire. Of course, he wasn't going to create the mystic fire lightning, because the mystic fire lightning was too slow. Wu Daozi could easily dodge it. He was just purely using the mystic fire. 3 mystic fires began to condense quickly, spinning, and jumping in Yang Dingtian's palm. Wu Daozi's face was slightly aghast, and then he suddenly gritted his teeth. Suddenly, the evil spirit energy emerged from his body, forming a powerful energy shield, enveloping his entire body. Go! Yang Dingtian's mystic fire smashed out like lightning. Whoosh! 3 rapidly spinning mystic fires smashed into Wu Daozi's body with incomparable ferocity. Boom! There was another earth-shattering explosion, and another dazzling light, like the light of a nuclear explosion. Even though they were tens of thousands of meters away, the people on the ground could not see anything on the battlefield, and were temporarily blinded. Half a minute later, the light gradually faded. Wu Daozi was still floating in the air, safe and sound. Ha 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 ha. Wu Daozi laughed coldly and said, Yang Dingtian, you've run out of tricks, right? Your 3 heaven and earth obsidian flames are extremely powerful. However, you still can't break my evil spirit energy barrier. Ha ha ha. Yang Dingtian immediately gritted his teeth. He originally thought that he would be able to win this battle, and it would be an easy victory. But the power of the evil spirit was far beyond her imagination. Of course, lightning energy could ignore the evil spirit energy shield. However, the mystic flame lightning's attack was too complicated. Furthermore, the location was fixed. As long as one avoided that location, they would be safe. Then, Wu Daozi looked at Yang Dingtian and said, Now it seems that you can't do anything to me, so your plan is going to fail. If you haven't found another way, I won't play with you anymore. I'm going back to my vulture palace. Wu Daozi, didn't you say that you want to kill me and tear me to pieces? Yang Dingtian asked. Why are you leaving in a hurry now? Wu Daozi laughed and said, You know you can't do it, but you're a fool. I can't kill you. But what if I join forces with Queen Haixian? What if I force Wolingzi to join me? You'll still die. Then, how about you take one more move from me before you leave? Yang Dingtian asked. Is it Mystic Flame Lightning? It's useless. You can't hit me at all. Wu Daozi laughed. No, it's not Mystic Flame Lightning. It's another more mysterious cultivation method. Do you want to try it? Yang Dingtian said. Haha. I don't believe you have any other cultivation method. There is no energy in this world that is more powerful than the evil spirit energy. Wu Daozi said. Let's try it. However, if you can't do anything to me with this move, then I'm very sorry. I won't play with you anymore. Okay. If I still can't defeat you with this move, then this competition will be a draw. Yang Dingtian said. Wu Daozi raised the evil spirit energy shield again and said with a smile. What moves do you have? Come at me. Yang Dingtian slowly closed his eyes. This move was definitely going to be a sure win. Otherwise, if he let the tiger return to the mountain, all his previous efforts would be wasted. And Wu Daozi, who already felt Yang Dingtian's threat, would definitely do everything possible to force Wolingzi to join hands and eliminate him. One Wu Daozi, Yang Dingtian was not afraid, but if Wolingzi was added in, or even Queen Haixian, then Yang Dingtian would find it very hard to escape too. Looking at it now, Wu Daozi's evil spirit energy shield was virtually completely unsolvable, unless the attack energy far exceeded Wu Daozi's cultivation. But this was impossible. Yang Dingtian was only ranked 15, while Wu Daozi was ranked 16. The Mystic Flame Lightning's position was fixed. It was simply impossible to hit it. Therefore, the method that Yang Dingtian thought of was the Darkness Mystic Flame, That's right, it was the darkness mystic flame. Of course, just relying on the darkness mystic flame was useless, because the darkness mystic flame's energy level was even lower than the evil spirit energy. It was completely helpless against the evil spirit. Yang Dingtian's idea was to use the darkness mystic flame to carve out a dark vortex. A true black hole should be able to devour all energy. Then would it also envelop the evil spirit energy? When the evil spirit energy was inside Wu Daozi's body, Yang Dingtian still had no way to deal with it, but releasing it outside the body and turning into an energy shield. Then could the vortex black hole created by the darkness mystic flame directly devour the evil spirit energy shield completely? Regardless of whether it succeeded or not, Yang Dingtian had to give it a try. Opening both eyes, Yang Dingtian's left hand once again summoned 3 heaven and earth mystic flames, which began to spin, becoming incomparably terrifying energy. His right hand summoned a powerful darkness mystic flame, but it was not a whole one that was summoned out, but strand by strand, piece by piece. Immediately, these darkness mystic flames formed an incomparably beautiful energy formation. This incomparably complicated and incomparably beautiful energy formation began to spin and rotate at lightning speed. Instantly, it became an extremely profound and mysterious vortex black hole. Oh! Yang Dingtian suddenly shot this vortex black hole out. Wu Daozi was immediately shocked and immediately dodged like lightning. However, this was impossible to avoid. The vortex black hole followed like a shadow, shrouding above his head. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The mystic flame black hole formed by the darkness mystic flame became faster and faster, more and more powerful. It crazily devoured all energy. Wu Daozi was shocked to find that the evil spirit energy on the surface of his body was rapidly dissipating, quickly disappearing into the black hole vortex above his head. Wu Daozi moved frantically, desperately trying to avoid this vortex black hole, but it was completely useless. The vortex black hole that was devouring kept following closely behind. In the blink of an eye, the evil spirit energy shield on his body became thinner and thinner. In the end, all the evil spirit energy shield was swallowed up cleanly. Of course, it did not disappear. It was still closely connected to Wu Daozi, but it was swallowed into another isolated space. Immediately afterward, Wu Daozi was even more shocked to find that the dark vortex above his head was even going to completely swallow him. He suddenly flew into a rage, circulating all the mystic chi energy in his body. Suddenly, the feeling of devouring ended, because his energy level exceeded Yang Dingtian's cultivation, and also exceeded the maximum devouring power of this energy black hole. The vortex black hole could not successfully devour his body. But for Yang Dingtian, this was enough. The 3 mystic fires in his left hand were rapidly rotating, bombarding Wu Daozi's body. Wu Daozi desperately dodged, quickly dodging. However, the 3 mystic fires quickly chased after him like shadows. Finally, they slammed into Wu Daozi's body. Boom boom boom. Once again, like a nuclear explosion, Wulingzi's body was hit by the energy of the 3 mystic fires. Almost instantly, his entire body was turned into a mass of charcoal, and then immediately turned into ashes. His handsome and majestic body directly turned into powder. But even so, the evil spirit energy still protected his heart, head, mystic veins, and chi. His entire body was completely turned into ashes, but the most important parts of his body were all protected by the evil spirit energy. The dark vortex could suck away his evil spirit energy shield, but it could not completely suck it away from his body. So, even if he was smashed to pieces, even if he turned into ashes, the evil spirit energy would still make him recover quickly, as good as new. To hell with the evil spirit energy. To hell with the evil spirit energy. At this time, Wu Daozi's body became incomparably strange, leaving only the mystic veins, heart, chi, and head under the protection of a mass of blue light. His whole body seemed to have completely become a mass of energy. Sure enough, under the protection of the evil spirit energy, his sword tip began to recover. First the head, inch by inch, flesh and blood grew out again, eyes, nose, and even hair. However, Because a large amount of evil spirit energy was blocked in the mystic fire black hole, the recovery speed became very slow. Only Wu Daozi's head was intact and he slowly said, "Yes, Yang Dingtian, I have lost this battle." Yang Dingtian. "Then you fulfill your promise." "Promise?" Wu Daozi slowly said. "What promise?" "Return Spirit Rabbit's freedom, return the position of Vulture Palace Master to Ling Chuzi, and exile yourself forever," Yang Dingtian said. "Ha ha 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 ha." Wu Daozi laughed and said, "In your dreams, Yang Dingtian, I lost, but it doesn't mean that I will fulfill my promise. Don't you know that for a top expert, promises are complete farts?" Then Wu Daozi began to gradually recover his neck, and said, "Not only will I not fulfill my promise, after returning to Vulture Palace, the first thing I will do is to force Wolingzi and contact Queen Hai Exan in the Snakeman Empire. The three of them will join forces to kill you. Of course, we can let Queen Hai Exan successfully borrow your seed first, and then kill you. You scourge, how can I let you live after humiliating me like this?" Yang Dingtian looked at Wu Daozi and said slowly, "You are even more despicable and shameless than Wolingzi. Despicable is the passport of the despicable. Haven't you heard of this saying?" Wu Daozi said slowly, "What can a noble person do? Can a noble person eat him?" Yang Dingtian. "Kill me if you have the ability, and I won't take revenge on you like crazy. But you can't kill me. You can't do anything to me. I have second great evil spirit energy. I have an immortal body. Even if I'm smashed to pieces, I still can't die." After saying that, Wu Daozi laughed wildly. Yang Dingtian suddenly stepped forward, aimed the sword in his hand at Wu Daozi's head, and slashed down. Wu Daozi's head was easily cut off. However, it was only the bones and flesh. Its brain and profound veins were still protected by the evil spirit energy, and had even become a kind of pure energy body. It was impossible to destroy. This was a second great evil spirit. It was completely different from third and fourth great evil spirits. Although a third great evil spirit had life, it only protected the profound veins, chi-si and brain. A second great evil spirit actually transformed the profound veins, chi-si, brain, and heart into an energy body. It was completely indestructible. Pa 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 pa. Yang Dingtian's devil sky-splitting lightning crazily struck Wu Daozi's brain energy body. However, it was still completely safe and sound. Yang Dingtian was really going crazy. Their evil spirit energy was so abnormal. How could they fight it? How could they fight it? Ha 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 ha. The flesh and blood of Wu Daozi's head was still slowly growing. Yang Dingtian, I'm really happy to see you flustered and exasperated. Just you wait, just you wait. Wait for me to bring Wolingzi and Queen Hai Exan over, and tear you into pieces. I'll kill your Council of Light and Tiando League, until chickens and dogs are in chaos. Ha 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 ha. Wu Daozi's wild laughter could be heard clearly within a few hundred miles. Not only the Heavenly Enlightenment Academy, but also the Western capital heard it clearly. This voice made one's heart tremble with fear. Yang Dingtian looked at Wu Daozi and slowly said, I originally just wanted to banish you to the edge of the world, and not ask about the matters of the human world. But now you are actually so crazy and shameless. Then don't blame me. Ha 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 ha. Wu Daozi laughed wildly and said, What can you do to me? What can you do to me? Yang Dingtian said, Yes, I can't kill you. However, I can imprison you forever, banish you to the dark world, banish you to the death continent. Then, Yang Dingtian suddenly released the void-splitting fire. Boom! The void-splitting fire was released, and it grew bigger and bigger. The black and white flames completely merged into a transparent fire, and then it continued to expand. Finally, the void-splitting fire tore open an energy door, leading to the first dark world, the Death Continent's spatial door. Go, there will never be any life there, and you will never be able to come out. Yang Dingtian said sternly, You only have yourself to blame. Yang Dingtian firmly locked onto Wu Daozi's energy body, while slowly enveloping the void-splitting gate. Wu Daozi struggled desperately in panic, but now he had to use all his evil spirit energy to restore his body. Most of the evil spirit energy was swallowed by the vortex, so he couldn't avoid Yang Dingtian's demon spirit demon fire at all. No, 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 Yang Dingtian, let go of me, let go of me. I promise you, I promise you. I admit defeat. I will exile myself to the edge of the world, and I will hand over the position of the Vulture Palace Master. Yang Dingtian, let me go. I will return the spirit rabbit to you. Ah! Wu Daozi desperately begged for mercy and screamed desperately. When he saw that Yang Dingtian was indifferent, he scolded with extreme resentment. Yang Dingtian, you dare to banish me to the world of death. Once I come out, I will carry out the craziest revenge on you. Your women, your children. I will kill all of them. Ha 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 ha. Yang Dingtian, let me go, let me go. Yang Dingtian used all his celestial qi to push the void-splitting gate and slowly moved forward. Just like this, Wu Daozi crazily cursed and begged for mercy. The void-splitting gate suddenly passed through Wu Daozi's energy body. Whoosh! The strange and terrifying Wu Daozi instantly disappeared without a trace, and was completely exiled to the Death Continent. The Death Continent without any life. If no one opened the dark door of the Death Continent, he would never be able to come out. Yang Dingtian slowly landed on the shattered arena of the Heavenly Edict Academy, and then raised Wu Daozi's bloody head high. Suddenly, the entire Heavenly Edict Academy was in an uproar. Long live Sect Master Yang Dingtian. The entire Shijing was in an uproar. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.